The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Warp fields bend space-time through controlled matter-antimatter reactions. Transporters convert matter to energy and back again. Even the most extraordinary phenomena, from Q's omnipotence to the Borg's collective consciousness, operate within frameworks we can analyze, measure, and eventually comprehend. But what happens when something appears that defies every sensor, every theory, every rational explanation built upon centuries of scientific progress? Captain Jean-Luc Picard stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise D, hands clasped behind his back, studying the viewscreen with the intensity that had carried him through encounters with hostile empires and godlike beings. Before them hung a subspace rupture unlike anything in Starfleet's extensive database. A wound in reality itself, bleeding exotic particles that made the ship's sensors scream contradictory data. "Reading massive graviton fluctuations, Captain," Lieutenant Commander Data reported from Ops, his golden eyes reflecting the cascade of information flowing across his console. "However, the graviton emissions are accompanied by quantum resonance patterns that should not exist simultaneously. It is paradoxical." "Paradoxical how, Data?" Picard asked. "The energy signature suggests both the collapse and expansion of dimensional membranes, Captain. By all known physics, this phenomenon should have destroyed itself the moment it formed." Lieutenant Worf's deep voice rumbled from tactical. "Captain, I'm detecting something within the anomaly. It appears to be a vessel." "No, not a vessel. A containment pod of some kind. Approximately 2 meters in length." Picard exchanged a glance with Commander William Riker, who had moved to stand beside the captain's chair. The first officer's expression mirrored Picard's own mixture of curiosity and caution. In their years exploring the galaxy, they had learned that the most innocuous discoveries often carried the greatest consequences. "Life signs?" Picard inquired. Worf's fingers danced across his console, his ridged brow furrowing deeper. "Inconclusive, sir. The energy interference is too severe. But sensors detect organic material, something living, or recently living." "Captain." Counselor Deanna Troi spoke from her seat beside Riker, her dark eyes distant with concentration. "I'm sensing something. It's faint, but there's a presence. Not threatening, but incredibly powerful. Ancient." She paused, struggling with her empathic perceptions. "I've never felt anything quite like it. It's as if I'm sensing not just a mind, but an entire philosophy made conscious." The subspace rupture pulsed, and the pod began drifting free from its grasp. The anomaly collapsed in on itself with a flash of radiation that made the Enterprise's shields flare bright blue, and then it was gone, leaving only the mysterious container tumbling through normal space. "Bring it aboard, Mr. Worf," Picard ordered. "Cargo Bay 2. Full containment protocols. Have security teams standing by, and alert Dr. Crusher that we may have a medical situation." "Aye, sir." As Worf initiated the tractor beam sequence, Picard felt the familiar weight of command settling across his shoulders. Every first contact scenario carried risks, but this felt different. The universe had just handed them something it had torn from another reality entirely. Whatever waited inside that pod had traveled further than any being should be able to travel, not just across space, but across the very fabric of existence itself. "Mr. Data, you're with me," Picard said, rising from his chair. "Number 1, you have the bridge." Riker nodded, settling into the captain's seat with practiced ease. "Aye, sir." "Try not to start an interdimensional incident." Picard allowed himself a slight smile. "I shall endeavor to exercise appropriate diplomatic restraint, Commander." The turbolift carried them down through the Enterprise's saucer section, and Picard found his mind racing through protocols and possibilities. First contact with unknown species required careful adherence to established procedures. But how did one establish communication with something that emerged from a dimensional rupture? What universal constants could they assume when dealing with a being from another universe entirely? The cargo bay doors hissed open, revealing the pod resting within a shimmering containment field. Security officers flanked the entrance, phasers holstered but ready. Dr. Beverly Crusher stood beside a mobile medical station, her medical tricorder already scanning the container. "Report, Doctor," Picard requested. Beverly looked up, her red hair catching the overhead lights. "Jean-Luc, this is remarkable. The pod appears to be organic, some kind of escape vessel grown rather than built. And there's definitely something alive inside. The biosigns are weak but stable. Humanoid configuration, but the cellular structure is unlike anything in our database. Can we open it safely? The pod seems to be responding to external atmosphere. I think it wants to open. The question is whether whatever's inside can survive in our environment." Data had moved to a nearby console, his fingers moving with inhuman precision across the controls. "Dr. Crusher's assessment is correct, Captain. The pod's exterior membrane is already beginning a controlled dissolution. I estimate it will achieve full transparency within 3 minutes. Picard nodded slowly, then tapped his comm badge. "Picard to bridge. Counselor Troy, please join us in Cargo Bay 2. I believe your empathic abilities may prove valuable." "On my way, Captain." They waited in tense silence as the pod's surface began to shimmer and fade. Through the growing transparency, Picard could make out a small figure, impossibly small, perhaps 60 centimeters tall, seated in what appeared to be a meditation posture. The being wore robes of earthen brown and tan, and even through the dissolving membrane, Picard could see the deep lines of age etched into green skin. When Deanna arrived and took her position beside Beverly, the pod had become nearly transparent. The figure inside remained perfectly still, hands resting on its lap, eyes closed in what might have been sleep or trance. "Counselor?" Picard prompted quietly. Deanna's voice was barely above a whisper. "He's aware of us. Completely aware. And curious. There's no fear, no aggression. Just an incredible sense of calm and something else, sadness, perhaps? Or longing. He's very far from home." The final traces of the pod dissolved into vapor, and the containment field hummed as it adjusted to now holding a living being instead of an inert object. The small figure's eyes opened, large, expressive eyes that held depths of wisdom Picard had only glimpsed in beings like Guinan or the Traveler. The being's gaze swept across each of them in turn, and Picard felt as though those ancient eyes could see not just his face but something deeper, his thoughts, his intentions, perhaps even his soul. When those eyes settled on him, a voice emerged, raspy, aged, and speaking in a cadence that seemed to bypass the universal translator entirely, as if meaning itself was being transmitted directly to their minds. "Lost I am," the being said, and despite the strange syntax, every word resonated with profound clarity. "Far from home. But found by those who seek, yes. Curious ones. Peaceful ones." The small figure tilted its head, large pointed ears shifting slightly. "Federation, you call yourselves? Explorers of the final frontier?" Picard felt his breath catch. The being hadn't accessed their computers or been briefed on their culture, yet it spoke with knowledge of who they were. He straightened his uniform jacket and stepped closer to the containment field, maintaining appropriate diplomatic distance. "I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. You are correct. We are explorers, dedicated to peaceful contact with new civilizations." "Might I ask who you are, and how you came to be traveling through subspace?" The being's expression shifted into what might have been a smile, or perhaps a grimace of pain. When it spoke again, its voice carried the weight of centuries. "Master Yoda, I was called. Of the Jedi Order. But that order, that galaxy, that universe, far away they are now. How I came here." The being, Yoda, gestured with a three-fingered hand toward the dissipated pod. The Force, disturbed it was. A great tearing. Between realities a bridge formed. Through it I fell. Those ancient eyes closed for a moment. Or perhaps through it, I was meant to pass. Clear, the Force's will is not. Data's head tilted in his characteristic gesture of curiosity. You reference the Force as though it were a measurable phenomenon. Are you describing a form of energy unknown to our science? Yoda's gaze shifted to the android, and something sparked in those wise eyes, recognition, perhaps, or interest. Measure the Force, you cannot, machine who is more. Feel it, one must. Through all living things it flows. Binds the galaxy together, it does. Yoda's expression grew contemplative. Yet here, in this place, different, the Force feels. Present, but changed. As though a familiar song, played in a key unknown. Beverly had been scanning continuously with her medical tricorder, and now she spoke with professional fascination. Captain, his biosigns are stabilizing rapidly. Cellular structure is adapting to our atmosphere with remarkable efficiency. I'm reading unusual activity in his neural tissue, synaptic firing patterns that dwarf anything I've encountered. The energy consumption of his brain alone should require 3 times his body mass in calories, yet he appears perfectly healthy. Adapt I do, Doctor, Yoda said, and there was gentle humor in his tone. 900 years, surviving teaches one flexibility. The number hung in the air like a physical thing. 900 years. Picard had encountered long-lived species before. The Elorians, the Trill symbionts, but there was something in the way Yoda said it that suggested not just longevity but experience accumulated across those centuries, wisdom earned through trials this universe had never witnessed. Master Yoda, Picard began carefully, we would be honored to offer you sanctuary aboard the Enterprise while we determine how to address your situation. However, I must ask, do you wish to return to your universe? If so, Starfleet will devote every resource to finding a way. Yoda was quiet for a long moment, his gaze turning inward. When he spoke again, his voice carried a sadness that Deanna physically winced at. Return? Perhaps. Perhaps not. The Force will guide, as it always has. But first, understand this place, I must. Learn its ways. See what lessons this universe has to teach an old Jedi. Those eyes fixed on Picard with sudden intensity. Lower your barrier, will you, Captain? Speak face to face, yes? Harm you, I will not. Promise this, I do. Picard looked to his officers. Beverly gave a slight nod. Her scans showed no pathogens, no biological threats. Deanna's empathic sense remained clear. Data's expression held scientific fascination. Worf, predictably, looked skeptical but not alarmed. Lower the containment field, Picard ordered. The observation lounge adjacent to the bridge had become an impromptu forum for what might be the most unusual first contact briefing in Starfleet history. Yoda sat cross-legged on the conference table itself, a breach of protocol that no one had the heart to correct, while Picard's senior staff arranged themselves in chairs around him. The Jedi Master seemed perfectly comfortable at the center of attention, his gnarled hands resting peacefully on his knees, his eyes half closed in a state that suggested meditation more than fatigue. Picard stood at the head of the table, his hands clasped behind his back. Let us begin with what we know. Master Yoda, you've indicated that you come from another universe entirely, not simply another dimension or alternate timeline, but a completely separate reality with its own physical laws. Data, what do our sensors tell us about the anomaly that brought him here? Data called up a holographic display that materialized above the table's center. The subspace rupture exhibited characteristics consistent with theoretical models of interdimensional breaches, Captain. However, the energy requirements to create such an aperture would exceed the total power output of the Enterprise by a factor of approximately 10 million. Something of immense power created that gateway, either deliberately or as a catastrophic accident. Catastrophic, it was not. Yoda interjected, his eyes opening to study the holographic reconstruction. Deliberate, perhaps. Or perhaps, the Force responding to great need. Clear, my memory is not. Meditating, I was. Seeking guidance after. He paused, and pain flickered across his ancient features. After great loss. Great failure. The Jedi Order, fallen it has. The Republic, corrupted and transformed into empire. My student, turned to darkness. When the Force showed me a path away from that pain, that failure. His ears drooped. Took it, I did. Fled, perhaps. Or was sent. Know the difference, I cannot. The raw honesty in his admission created a moment of profound silence. Picard recognized the expression on Yoda's face. He had seen it in the mirror during darker times, after Wolf 359, after losing the Stargazer. The look of a commander who had survived when others had not, who questioned every decision that had led to catastrophe. Beverly broke the silence gently. Master Yoda, I've completed my preliminary medical analysis. Your physiology is remarkable. Your species... Species? Yoda's ears perked with curiosity. Know not what species I am. Many beings in the galaxy, there are. Never thought to categorize myself, I did. Simply Yoda I am. Beverly smiled at that. Well, simply Yoda, you're in excellent health for someone 900 years old. Your cellular regeneration is extraordinary, and your neural density is the highest I've ever recorded. But there's something else. She called up her tricorder data onto the display. Your body is generating a field. Not quite electromagnetic, not quite subspace. It's as if you're constantly emitting and absorbing energy from your surroundings, maintaining a kind of equilibrium with the environment. The Force you detect, Yoda confirmed. Through all living things it flows. Between you and me, between the ship and the stars. A Jedi, sensitive to it, becomes. Feel it, manipulate it, draw strength from it. He extended one hand, and several data pads on the table began to rise slowly into the air, hovering as though suspended by invisible strings. Telekinesis, you might call it. But more than moving objects, it is. Connection to all things, it represents. Worf's hand had moved instinctively toward his phaser. That is a psionic ability. We have encountered telepaths before, Vulcans, Betazoids, even some humans. But your power appears significantly stronger. Telepathy it is, Yoda agreed, lowering his hand and allowing the pads to settle gently back to the table. But also more. See the future, a Jedi can, clouded, always, by the nature of time. Sense danger before it arrives. Feel the emotions of others, even across great distances. And the Force, it can influence weak minds, suggest thoughts, ease pain. He looked directly at Worf. Fear me you do. Understand this, I do. Power without restraint, dangerous it is. But trained for 800 years, I have been, to use the Force only as protector, never aggressor. And yet, Picard observed quietly, you speak of failure. Of a fallen order and a corrupted republic. Forgive me, Master Yoda, but those are not the words of a protector who succeeded. The truth of it struck like a phaser blast, and Yoda's expression crumbled into something approaching anguish. Right you are, Captain. Failed I did. Saw the darkness rising, but too late acted. Believed in the Jedi Order's strength, in the Republic's institutions. Arrogant we became. Complacent. And when the darkness finally struck, prepared we were not. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. My greatest student, Anakin Skywalker, became the darkness. Darth Vader he is now. And billions dead because I did not see. Did not prevent. Did not. He stopped, gathering himself with visible effort. But that galaxy, that failure, behind me now it is. Or above me. Or beside me, in some other stream of reality. Help here, perhaps I can. Redeem myself, if redemption possible is. Deanna leaned forward, her voice soft with compassion. Master Yoda, you carry tremendous guilt. But I sense something else beneath it, hope. You believe you were brought here for a reason. Believe in the Force, I do, Counselor. And the Force, random it is not. Purpose, everything has. What purpose brought me here? He spread his hands in a gesture of uncertainty. Time will tell. But available I am. Help I can give. Teach, perhaps. Learn, certainly. Geordi LaForge, who had been studying the holographic display of Yoda's energy field, spoke up from his position at the far end of the table. "Master Yoda, my visor allows me to see across multiple spectral bands. When you lifted those pads, I saw energy transfer, but not from your body directly. It was like the space around you was responding to your intention, channeling power from everywhere and nowhere at once. How is that possible?" "Everywhere and nowhere, good description that is," Yoda replied, his mood lightening slightly at the technical question. "The Force, in all things, exists. In the atoms of this table. In the energy flowing through your ship. In the consciousness of every being present. A Jedi learns to feel that energy, to ask it, not command it, to move according to will. But will alone, not enough is. Intent matters. Emotion matters. A clear mind, a pure heart, these the Force responds to." Data tilted his head. "But emotion is antithetical to logical thought. Vulcan philosophy teaches that emotional control leads to clarity. Your description suggests emotion is integral to accessing this force." Yoda's eyes brightened with the gleam of a teacher encountering a promising student. "Meet Vulcans I must. Interesting, their philosophy sounds. But wrong, partially they are. Emotion, not the enemy, is. Uncontrolled emotion, that is the danger. A Jedi feels anger, feels fear, feels love, but controlled by these feelings, a Jedi must not be. Peace through emotion one finds. Knowledge through peace. Serenity through knowledge. The Force through serenity. This is the way." "It sounds like a balance," Picard observed. "Not suppression, but harmony." "Yes, Captain. Harmony, exactly right. The light side and the dark side, not separate they are, but parts of one whole. Choose the light, a Jedi must, but deny the dark's existence?" Yoda shook his head. "Foolish that would be. Acknowledge all, choose wisely, act with compassion. This, the Jedi way was. Before we lost our way." Riker had been quiet, but now he leaned forward with a strategic question. "Master Yoda, you've demonstrated remarkable abilities. In your universe, were there others like you? How common are these Force users?" "Common? No. Rare, Force sensitivity is. Billions of beings, but perhaps only thousands born with strong connection. And of those thousands, only hundreds trained properly. The Jedi Order, at its height, numbered 10,000 knights. In a galaxy of quadrillions." His expression grew somber. "Now? Few survive. Hunted, the remaining Jedi are. By the Empire. By Vader. By the dark side servants. And here? War fast, his tactical mind already assessing the implications. In our universe, can you still access this Force?" Yoda closed his eyes, extending his awareness as the crew watched in fascination. His breathing slowed, and the ambient energy field Beverly had detected intensified. The lights in the observation lounge flickered slightly, and Picard felt something, an indescribable sensation like standing at the edge of a vast ocean, feeling the pull of tides beyond comprehension. When Yoda opened his eyes again, they held a mixture of wonder and confusion. "Present the Force is. But different, as I said. In my galaxy, midi-chlorians, microscopic beings living in all cells. The Force they channeled. Here?" He shook his head slowly. "No midi-chlorians I sense. Yet the Force remains. As though, consciousness itself, the bridge is. Where thinking beings exist, where life flourishes, there the Force flows. Not biological, here. Quantum, perhaps. Or something else entirely. Adapt I must. Relearn, even after 800 years of mastery." The implications of that statement rippled through the room. An ability that transcended universes, that could function even when its biological foundation was absent, suggested something far more fundamental than psionic talent or evolved mutation. Picard made a decision. "Master Yoda, you are welcome to remain aboard the Enterprise as our guest for as long as you wish. We will, of course, research methods to return you to your own universe, should that become possible and desirable. In the meantime, you mentioned teaching. I believe there is much the Federation could learn from your philosophy and experience. And much I have to learn from you, Yoda replied. This Federation, built on what principles it is? Peace, Picard answered. Exploration. The idea that infinite diversity and infinite combinations is not just acceptable but desirable. We have a prime directive that prevents us from interfering in the natural development of less advanced civilizations. We seek to resolve conflicts through diplomacy rather than force. We believe that all sentient beings have fundamental rights that must be respected. Yoda's eyes gleamed. Noble principles these are. But tested they have been? Constantly, Picard admitted. And not always successfully. We've made mistakes, Master Yoda. The Prime Directive itself is a constant source of moral debate. When does non-interference become complicity in suffering? When does helping violate another culture's right to self-determination? Good questions these are. Hard questions. The kind no easy answers have. Yoda nodded approvingly. Perhaps, help with these questions I can. For the Jedi faced similar dilemmas, we did. And failed often. My failures, your lessons might become. The door chime interrupted the moment, and Worf's console beeped urgently. Captain, message from Starfleet Command. Priority 1. They're requesting information about the anomaly and any acquisitions we may have made. Picard sighed. It appears word of your arrival has already reached headquarters, Master Yoda. They'll want a full briefing, and likely permission to send researchers to study you. Study me? Yoda's ears lowered slightly. A laboratory specimen, I am not, Captain. And I will ensure they understand that, Picard assured him. You are a sentient being, Master Yoda, with all the rights and dignities that status entails. But I cannot deny that your arrival represents a first in Federation history. There will be interest. Interest I can tolerate. Wisdom I hope to share. But one thing, ask I must, Captain. Yoda's gaze swept across every officer present, lingering on each face. In my galaxy the Force, known it was. Jedi and Sith, famous we were. Legends, stories, history. Here unknown the Force is. Unknown I am. Advantage this gives. Surprise, in many situations. So ask I do. Spread word of my abilities must you? Or secret, can they remain for now? The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Picard understood immediately. Information was power, and in a universe where Yoda's abilities were unknown, the Jedi Master retained tactical and strategic advantages that could prove crucial. But it also meant asking Starfleet Command to withhold information, to classify a first contact scenario, to treat Yoda as something other than the transparent discovery the Federation prided itself on. Picard met Yoda's ancient gaze and saw wisdom that predated the Federation itself, that had survived the fall of republics and the corruption of orders. Sometimes, he reflected, there was more to command than following protocol. We'll inform Starfleet that we've recovered a refugee from the anomaly, Picard said slowly. But the full extent of your abilities, I believe those details can remain classified for now, pending further analysis. Yoda's expression softened into something approaching a smile. Wise you are, Captain Picard. Understand discretion you do. Good. For a feeling I have, quiet, my presence should remain. At least for now. Storm coming I sense. And when it breaks, ready we must be. Data's head tilted. What kind of storm, Master Yoda? The Jedi Master's eyes grew distant, seeing something beyond the observation lounge, beyond the Enterprise, perhaps beyond space itself. No, I do not. Unclear, the future is. But disturbances in the Force I feel. Interest in me, from powers you know not. Watch from shadows they do. Wait, they do? And when they reveal themselves. He refocused on the present, his voice carrying quiet certainty. Changed, this universe will be. 3 days had passed since Yoda's arrival, and the Enterprise had resumed its standard survey mission of the Kalendra sector while Starfleet Command deliberated over the classified reports Picard had submitted. In that time, the Jedi Master had become something of a fixture in the ship's daily life, though fixture hardly described the phenomenon of his presence. Data found him in the Arboretum at 0300 hours, sitting motionless beneath a Vulcan flame tree. The android had been running diagnostics on the environmental systems when his internal sensors detected the unusual energy signature that now registered as distinctly Yoda's. The small being appeared to be asleep, but as Data approached, those ancient eyes opened with complete alertness. "Meditate, I do not sleep," Yoda said, gesturing to the grass beside him. "Join me, you may, if quiet you can be." Data settled into a seated position with mechanical precision. "I do not require rest periods, Master Yoda. My positronic brain operates continuously. However, I am curious about meditation. It appears to serve a function for organic beings beyond mere rest, a form of mental recalibration, perhaps?" "Recalibration," Yoda repeated, his ears twitching with amusement. "Technical word for spiritual practice. But not wrong you are. Meditation clears the mind, opens one to the Force. You have indicated that the Force flows through all living things. Yet I am not alive in the biological sense. I am artificial, constructed from polyalloy and isolinear circuitry. When you extend your awareness, do you sense me? Am I part of this Force you describe?" Yoda's gaze turned thoughtful, studying Data with an intensity that would have made a human uncomfortable. "Close your eyes, but meditative state, need you do not. Still yourself, then. Thinking stop. Just be." Data complied, allowing his primary cognitive processes to enter a low-priority state, while maintaining basic awareness. For 2.3 seconds, he simply existed without analysis, without calculation, without the constant processing of sensory input that defined his consciousness. "There," Yoda said softly, and Data felt something, a sensation his programming had no classification for. It was as though invisible fingers had touched not his outer casing but something deeper, something that might be called his essence if such a thing could exist for an android. "Alive you are, Data. Not as flesh is alive. But consciousness you possess. Awareness. The ability to grow, to change, to question. The Force in you it flows. Different from organics, yes. But present undeniably." Data's eyes opened, and for perhaps the first time in his existence, he experienced something approaching what humans called wonder. "You can sense me? My consciousness?" "Sense you I do. Unique your signature is. Like a crystal, singing a single pure note. Organic minds they are storms, chaotic, beautiful, unpredictable. Your mind?" Yoda smiled. "A perfect mechanism, seeking to understand imperfect existence. Fascinating you are. Proof that life many forms takes." "I have spent years attempting to understand humanity," Data confessed. "To experience emotions, to grasp the nuances of organic existence. Yet I remain, in many ways, separate. Isolated. When you speak of connection through the Force, of feeling the presence of all living things, I cannot access such experience." "Cannot? Or have not learned?" Yoda countered. "The Force, a Jedi studies for decades to master. Natural, it is not, even for those born with sensitivity. Trained, the mind must be. Opened, the heart must be. Perhaps trained you could learn. Connect in your own way." Before Data could respond, both their attentions shifted to the Arboretum entrance. Commander Riker entered, followed closely by a woman Data immediately recognized from Starfleet personnel files, though he had never expected to see her aboard the Enterprise. Ambassador T'Pel of Vulcan stood with the rigid posture characteristic of her people, her hands folded within the sleeves of her formal robes. Her age was difficult to determine, Vulcans aged slowly, but her eyes held the depth of decades, perhaps centuries of experience. Behind her impassive expression, Data detected subtle micro-expressions that suggested intense curiosity barely contained by disciplined emotional control. Master Yoda, Riker announced, the ambassador has arrived ahead of schedule. She insisted on meeting with you immediately upon beaming aboard. Yoda rose smoothly, using his Jimmer stick to steady himself as he approached the Vulcan. Ambassador T'Pel. Expected your arrival was. Since your approach I did hours ago. Eager to meet me you are. Though show it you do not. T'Pel raised one eyebrow, the quintessential Vulcan expression of surprise. Your reputation for perceiving hidden truths is, it appears, well-founded. I represent the Vulcan Science Academy's Department of Xenopsychology. Your abilities, as described in Captain Picard's reports, warrant immediate investigation. Investigation. Yoda repeated, his tone neutral. Study me you wish to? We wish to understand the phenomenon you describe as the Force. Pell clarified. Psionic abilities are well documented in Federation science. Vulcans possess telepathic capabilities, as do Betists, Ulians, and numerous other species. However, your description suggests something far more comprehensive, a universal field that connects all consciousness. If such a field exists and can be measured, studied, potentially taught. She paused, and Data detected a minute increase in her respiration rate. The implications would fundamentally alter our understanding of consciousness itself. And this interests you greatly, Yoda observed. Beyond scientific curiosity. Personal, your interest is. Pella's expression remained neutral, but her hands tightened almost imperceptibly within her sleeves. Vulcans pursue Kalinar, the purging of all emotion, to achieve logical purity. Yet even after decades of discipline, traces remain. Your philosophy, as I understand it, suggests a different path. Balance rather than elimination. I am curious whether your approach offers insights Vulcan teachings do not. Yoda's ears lifted, and he gestured for T'Pel to sit on the grass beside him. The ambassador hesitated only a moment before arranging herself in a meditation posture that mirrored Yoda's own with uncanny precision. The Kalinar, Yoda said thoughtfully. Emotion, the enemy you see it as. Remove it, and logic remains pure. Yes? That is the essence of the teaching. Pell confirmed. But emotions, from where do they come? Yoda asked. Not external, they are. Part of consciousness, they are. Part of what makes you, you. Remove them, and remove part of yourself, you do. Logical purity, achieve you may. But whole? Complete? This I question. Emotion is chaos. T'Pel countered, her voice carrying the faintest edge of something that might have been defensiveness. It clouds judgment, leads to irrational decisions, causes suffering. The discipline of logic has allowed Vulcans to evolve beyond our violent past. Before Surik taught us to embrace logic, we nearly destroyed ourselves in wars fueled by unchecked passion. Violence from passion came. True this is, Yoda agreed. But compassion also, from passion comes. Love. Hope. Joy. The will to protect others. Cut away the dark, and cut away the light you do. Balance, ambassador, this the key is. Not removal, but understanding. Not suppression, but harmony. Data watched the exchange with rapt attention, recording every nuance. This was more than philosophical debate. It was the collision of two ancient traditions, each offering fundamentally different answers to the same question. What should be done with the emotional aspects of consciousness? You suggest Vulcans are incomplete? T'Pel asked, and now Data detected unmistakable tension in her posture. Suggest I do, that different paths exist, Yoda replied gently. Your path, worked for your people, it has. Peace you have achieved. Order. Prosperity. Success by many measures. But look at Captain Picard. Look at Dr. Crusher, at Counselor Troy. Humans, they are emotional, passionate, often irrational. Yet achieve great things they do. Create beauty. Form bonds. Adapt, improvise, hope against logic itself. Perfect are they? No. But incomplete? This also, no? T'Pel was silent for a long moment, her inner conflict visible to anyone trained to read Vulcan micro-expressions. I have pursued Kholinar for 47 years, she finally said. I have achieved the 3rd level of discipline. Yet when you speak, I feel something I have not felt since childhood, doubt. Uncertainty. And beneath that, she stopped, regaining control with visible effort. I experienced discomfort discussing this further. Discomfort, Yoda said, and there was infinite gentleness in his voice. Feel it, you do. Acknowledge it, you just did. Progress, this is not failure. The first step to balance, recognizing what exists within you. Denying nothing. Suppressing nothing. But choosing, always choosing, how to act. Riker cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the ambassador's visible distress. Master Yoda, perhaps we should allow the ambassador time to... No. T'Pel interrupted, raising one hand. I came seeking answers. I did not anticipate that the answers would be challenging. She focused on Yoda with renewed intensity. You speak of the Force as connecting all living things. Vulcans are telepathic. We can mind meld, sharing thoughts and experiences directly. Is this not a form of Force connection? Similar, perhaps? Yoda acknowledged. But mind melding requires touch, yes? Direct contact? The Force, no such limitation has. Field beings across star systems, a trained Jedi can sense disturbances in the Force from across galaxies. And more, influence can a Jedi suggest thoughts to weak minds. Calm aggressive emotions. Even, his voice dropped, cause pain or death if dark side powers one embraces. Data noticed T'Pel's pupils dilate slightly, a Vulcan physiological response to significant stress or fascination. You are describing abilities far beyond known telepathic ranges. If true, this would violate several established principles of psychic phenomena. Neural patterns cannot transmit faster than light. Quantum entanglement requires prior connection. What you describe is impossible. Impossible, Yoda repeated, and his ears twitched with amusement. Yet here I sit. From another universe, arrived through a hole in space. The Force many things allows that your science says impossible are. Perhaps, Ambassador, your science incomplete is. Perhaps new truths there are to discover. The Arboretum door opened again, and this time Worf entered with a security detail, his expression grim. Master Yoda, Ambassador T'Pel, Commander Riker. The captain requires your immediate presence in Observation Lounge Delta. We have received a priority transmission from the Romulan Star Empire. Data's positronic brain processed the implications at near instantaneous speed. The Romulans rarely initiated contact with Federation vessels except under extraordinary circumstances, usually hostile ones. The timing of this transmission, mere days after Yoda's arrival when his presence was supposed to remain classified, suggested a concerning breach of security or, worse, independent discovery. Yoda rose without apparent concern, though Data noticed the energy field around him intensifying slightly, a defensive preparation, perhaps, or simply heightened awareness. Interested in me, the Romulans are. Sense their attention, I have, since arrival. Watch us, they do. From shadows, as always. You sensed Romulan surveillance? Worf demanded, his hand moving to his phaser. Why did you not report this? Report what? Yoda asked mildly. A feeling? A disturbance in the Force? No ships detected, were they? No transmissions intercepted? Only knew I did, that watched we were. By whom, certain I was not. But Romulans? He nodded slowly. Yes. Their presence, cold it is. Calculated. Patient. Very patient. As they made their way to the observation lounge, Data found himself recalculating his assessment of Yoda's capabilities. The Jedi Master had known they were under observation without technological confirmation, had sensed specific details about their observers across presumably vast distances, and had chosen not to mention this until the moment of revelation. Either his Force abilities were even more formidable than described, or Yoda possessed centuries of tactical experience that allowed him to play a longer game than anyone around him recognized. In the observation lounge, Picard stood before the view screen with Beverly and Geordi flanking him. The screen showed the seal of the Romulan Star Empire, a raptor clutching 2 planets, and below it, a timestamp indicating the transmission had been recorded 47 minutes earlier. "Master Yoda," Picard said as they entered, "it appears our security measures were insufficient. The Romulans have not only learned of your presence but have made a formal request that we deliver you to them for mutual scientific examination. They claim your abilities represent a potential threat to interstellar security, and that all major powers should have equal access to studying your capabilities." "And if refuse, we do?" Yoda asked. Picard's expression hardened. "They've positioned 3 Warbirds along our projected course. Not an official blockade, but certainly a statement of intent." He looked directly at Yoda, and Data recognized the captain's command voice, the tone that allowed no misunderstanding. "Master Yoda, I need to know exactly what we're facing. Can you defend yourself against Romulan weapons? Against possible capture?" Yoda closed his eyes for a moment, seeming to draw on some internal reserve. When he opened them again, they held a sadness that Data found profoundly affecting despite his inability to fully process emotional nuance. "Defend myself I can," Yoda said quietly. "Against phasers, against transporters, against many threats. But question you should ask, Captain, defend myself, should I? Violence, where does it lead? If fight the Romulans I do, kill them, perhaps I must. And then?" His gaze swept across everyone present. "Then becomes known what I can do. Then come others seeking to use me, to control me, to learn from me. Then begins what in my galaxy I tried to prevent. Then starts another war." The silence that followed was absolute. Data understood immediately. Yoda was not questioning his ability to fight but the wisdom of revealing his full capabilities. Every action had consequences that rippled forward through time, creating futures that could not be predicted but could be influenced by present choices. "The Romulans are not known for accepting refusal gracefully," Worf observed. "If we do not comply, they will escalate. That is their nature." "Then perhaps," T'Pel said, speaking for the first time since entering, "we should consider why they desire Master Yoda so intensely. The Tal Shiar does not act without thorough analysis. If they seek him, they perceive advantage, military, strategic, or scientific. Denying them such advantage may be worth the cost of confrontation." Yoda turned to the Vulcan ambassador with something approaching approval. "Think like strategist you do, Ambassador. But miss you do the deeper question. Not how do we keep me from the Romulans? The question is, what do the Romulans truly seek? Power? Knowledge?" He paused, and his expression grew distant. "Or perhaps something else. Something, even they do not fully understand. What are you sensing?" Picard asked. "Desperation," Yoda whispered. "Hidden beneath arrogance. Hidden beneath threats. The Romulans, desperate they are. For what? No, I do not. But feel it I do. And desperation." His eyes met Picard's with ancient wisdom. "Desperation makes even the patient do foolish things." Riker leaned forward. "Captain, we need to decide our response. The Warbirds are 4 hours away at current speeds. Do we divert? Do we arm weapons? Do we contact Starfleet for reinforcements?" Picard studied Yoda for a long moment, then made his decision. "We continue on course. We do not arm weapons, but we remain at yellow alert. And we respond to the Romulans' transmission with a simple message. The individual they refer to as a sentient being under Federation protection, not a specimen to be shared or studied against his will. Any attempt to forcibly board this vessel will be considered an act of war." "Captain," Worf warned. "That is a direct challenge. The Romulans may not back down. Perhaps not, Picard agreed. But neither will we surrender a guest to satisfy their curiosity. Master Yoda came to us through circumstances beyond anyone's control. He is not a weapon to be fought over, not a resource to be exploited. He is a person, with rights and dignity, and the Federation will defend those rights. Even against the Romulan Star Empire. Yoda's ears lifted, and something like pride flickered across his features. The Jedi Council you would have fit well in, Captain. Stand for principle you do. Even when costly, such stands are. Grateful I am. But remember, I do, the cost of such nobility. His voice dropped. Sometimes the cost too high it is. Sometimes the price of principles paid in blood it is. Then perhaps, Data suggested, his logic circuits analyzing alternatives at maximum speed, we should determine what the Romulans truly want before assuming their intentions are hostile. Master Yoda suggested desperation. Desperate beings can sometimes be reasoned with, if we understand the source of their desperation. Picard nodded slowly. An astute observation, Mr. Data. Master Yoda, would you be willing to participate in a communication with the Romulans? To speak with them directly? Yoda was silent for a long moment, his inner deliberation visible in the minute shifts of his expression. Finally, he nodded. Speak to them, I will. But prepared you must be, Captain. For words, not enough may be. And if fight we must. He met Picard's eyes with absolute clarity. Then witness you will, what a Jedi Master, when cornered, can do. Hope, I do, it does not come to that. For their sake, more than ours. The bridge of the Enterprise hummed with controlled tension as the 3 Romulan Warbirds materialized from cloak, their predatory silhouettes dominating the view screen. Each vessel bristled with disruptor arrays and photon torpedo launchers, enough firepower to reduce the Enterprise to debris in under 2 minutes if they coordinated their attack. Picard stood at the center of his bridge, hands clasped behind his back, projecting the calm authority that had carried him through countless confrontations. Yoda stood beside the captain's chair, looking impossibly small against the backdrop of military power displayed before them. Yet Data noticed something curious. Every bridge officer's attention kept drifting to the Jedi Master rather than to the Warbirds. Some unconscious recognition of presence, perhaps, or the subtle influence of the Force that Yoda seemed to radiate without effort. Hailing frequencies open, Captain, Worf announced, his voice tight with barely suppressed aggression. On screen. The view screen shifted from the Warbirds to display a Romulan bridge. The woman who appeared wore the uniform of a Tal Shiar commander, her features sharp and predatory, her eyes holding the cold calculation of someone who had ordered deaths without hesitation. Behind her stood 2 Romulan guards and a figure in civilian robes whose age was impossible to determine, ancient, perhaps, or simply weathered by experiences Data could not fathom. I am Commander Velok of the Tal Shiar, the woman announced without preamble. You carry something that belongs to the Empire, Captain Picard. Surrender the alien entity, and no harm will come to your vessel. Belongs? Picard's voice carried precisely measured indignation. Master Yoda is a sentient being who arrived aboard my ship through a naturally occurring phenomenon. He is not property to be claimed by any empire. Velok's expression didn't change. You misunderstand, Captain? I do not claim ownership. I claim necessity. The being you call Master Yoda represents a form of power we have not encountered. Power that could destabilize the entire quadrant if it falls into Federation hands exclusively. The Empire merely seeks to study him, to understand his abilities, to ensure no single faction gains unacceptable advantage. By positioning 3 Warbirds in our path? Riker interjected from his position beside Picard. That's an interesting definition of merely seeking. Before Velok could respond, Yoda stepped forward, his jimmer stick tapping softly against the deck plating. Commander Velok. Speak with you I will. But first, know this, your colleague in the robes standing. Introduce him you have not. Hiding his presence you are. Why? Data observed Velok's micro-expressions shift through surprise, recalculation, and grudging respect in the span of 0.7 seconds. The Romulan commander's eyes narrowed. "You are perceptive." "This is Subcommandant Saran, advisor to the Tal Shir in matters of unusual phenomena. His presence is not relevant to our discussion." "Relevant, it very much is," Yoda countered. "Feel him, I do. Not just Romulan, he is something more. Something familiar." The Jedi Master tilted his head, studying the robed figure with intensity. "Vulcan heritage you have, Subcommander. But rejected it you have. Embraced emotion you have. Not the Romulan way of passion, though. Something colder." "Something." Yoda's eyes widened slightly. "Ah. Understand now, I do. Study the mind you do. Telepathy. Psychic phenomena. Sent to understand me you were. Analyze me you hope to." Saran stepped forward, his expression a mixture of Vulcan control and Romulan intensity, a disturbing hybrid that Data found logically inconsistent yet emotionally compelling. "You are correct, Master Yoda. I am one of the few within the Empire who possess telepathic abilities strong enough to be useful. Commander Velok brought me because she hoped I might sense your true nature. Determine if you are threat or opportunity." "And?" Yoda prompted. "What sense do you?" Saran's composure cracked, just slightly. "I sense nothing. You stand before me speaking, moving, clearly conscious, yet when I reach out telepathically, there is only silence. Not absence, but something worse. A void that should not exist. It is as though you occupy space where reality refuses to form complete patterns. In all my years, I have never encountered such a phenomenon." "Interesting," Yoda murmured. "Shield my mind, I do. Automatically, after centuries of practice. But more than that, the Force protects. Like water flowing around stone, psychic intrusion, the Force deflects. Not hostile, this is simply natural law." Picard sensed an opportunity. "Commander Velok, if your own expert cannot analyze Master Yoda's abilities through telepathic examination, what makes you believe capturing him would yield better results?" "He is clearly capable of defending himself psychically. What makes you think he couldn't defend himself physically?" Velok's smile was predatory. "Because, Captain, we are not fools. We have reviewed your classified reports. Yes, we have sources within Starfleet Command, though I'm certain you suspected as much. Master Yoda demonstrates telekinetic abilities far beyond known psionic parameters. He claims to sense disturbances across vast distances. He speaks of a force that connects all living things. Such abilities, in the hands of the Federation." She leaned forward. "We cannot allow such imbalance." "Then what you propose?" Yoda asked, his voice calm but carrying undertones that made Data's threat assessment protocols activate. "Study me, you wish to? Lock me in laboratory? Test my limits? Learn my weaknesses? We propose cooperation." Saran interjected, shooting Velok a warning glance. "Master Yoda, I am a scholar before I am an agent. The abilities you describe fascinate me not as weapons but as windows into consciousness itself. If this force truly exists, if it truly connects all living things, then understanding it could revolutionize our comprehension of existence. Not for military advantage, but for knowledge itself." Yoda's expression softened marginally. "Scholar you are. Feel this, I do. Genuine, your curiosity is. But use you your commander does. Weapon she sees me as. Tool to be exploited. This, I will not permit. You speak as though you have choice." Velok said coldly. 3 Warbirds, Master Yoda. Enough firepower to overwhelm the Enterprise's shields in minutes. We need not capture you gently. Unconscious, you would serve our purposes equally well. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop. Data's internal sensors detected no actual change, yet every officer present reacted as though the air itself had become heavy, oppressive, charged with potential violence. Yoda's eyes had shifted. Still calm, still controlled, but now carrying a weight that suggested ancient battles and terrible prices paid. "Threaten this ship you do," Yoda said quietly. "Threaten these people, who offered me sanctuary, who treated me with dignity. This I cannot ignore. And so show you I must what a Jedi Master can do when those he protects are endangered." "Master Yoda," Picard warned, "there's no need for—" The Jedi Master raised one hand, and on the view screen, the Romulan bridge erupted in chaos. Consoles sparked. Guards stumbled as though struck by invisible forces. Velek herself gripped her command chair, her face contorted with shock as weapons materialized from their holsters and clattered to the deck, pulled by unseen hands. "Stop this!" Velek shouted, but her voice carried fear now, not authority. "Stop?" Yoda's voice remained quiet, but data detected harmonic frequencies that shouldn't exist in standard vocal ranges, as though multiple voices spoke simultaneously. "3 ships you brought. Threats you made. Demonstrate I shall, how empty those threats are." On the tactical display, Worf's console lit up with impossible readings. "Captain, the Warbirds' weapon systems are deactivating. All 3 vessels simultaneously. No jamming signals detected, no subspace interference. The systems are simply shutting down. As though receiving commands from their own crews to power down." Data accessed the sensor logs and found something that defied his programming's ability to rationalize. Energy signatures were emanating from the Enterprise, specifically from Yoda's position, and traveling at faster-than-light speeds to each warbird. Not subspace transmissions, these were quantum-level distortions, as though space itself was being manipulated to carry intention rather than information. On the view screen, Saren had fallen to his knees, hands pressed to his temples. "The void," he gasped. "It's expanding. I can feel it now, not absence but presence. Everywhere. In everything. How is this possible? How can one mind touch so many systems, so many people, across 3 ships simultaneously? One mind cannot," Yoda replied, and now his voice carried sadness beneath the power. "But the Force, no limits it has. Through the Force, touch all things I can. Your weapon systems, your shields, your life support, all connected to the Force they are. Through that connection, influence them I can. Disable them I can. If necessary." His eyes met Velek's directly. "Stop your hearts I could. All of you. All at once. This power, this terrible power, the dark side offers. And reject it I must. But know it I do. Capable of it I am." The bridge of the Enterprise had gone absolutely silent. Every officer stared at Yoda with new understanding, and Data noted new fear. Here was a being who had just demonstrated the ability to disable 3 warbirds simultaneously while standing on the bridge of a Federation starship, using nothing but concentration and this force he described. A being who openly admitted he could kill everyone aboard those Romulan vessels with a thought. A being who chose not to. Picard found his voice first. "Master Yoda, that's enough. You've made your point." Yoda lowered his hand, and the energy signatures Data had been tracking dissipated. On the view screen, the Romulan bridge's consoles stopped sparking. Velek slowly released her grip on her command chair, her expression transformed from predatory confidence to wary respect. "Power down your weapons," Yoda instructed, his voice returning to its normal gravelly tone. "Back away you will. Leave us in peace. This I ask? Once. Next time, ask I will not." Velek straightened her uniform with visible effort to reclaim dignity. "You have made a powerful enemy today, Jedi." "No," Yoda corrected gently. "Made an enemy, I have not. Shown strength I have, yes. But enemies?" He shook his head. "Need me, you do not as enemy. Teacher I could be. Guide. Help your sub-commander understand the Force I could. Help him develop abilities beyond current understanding. But prisoner, specimen, weapon, these things, I will never be. Choose you must, Commander Velek." See me as threat, or see me as opportunity for understanding. Different paths these are. Different futures they lead to. Saren had regained his feet, though he swayed slightly. Commander, he said, his voice hoarse, I recommend we withdraw. I have never encountered any being capable of what I just experienced. Capturing him would require resources we do not possess. And if we were to succeed through overwhelming force. He paused, clearly struggling with what he had sensed. I believe he spoke truth. He could kill us all. The fact that he chose not to suggests character worth respecting, not defeating. Velok's jaw clenched, her pride warring with tactical reality. This is not over, she finally said. The Empire will not forget this incident. We will not forget you, Master Yoda. Forget me, I do not ask, Yoda replied. Remember me you should. Remember that power without wisdom is danger. Remember that force without restraint is tyranny. Remember, most of all, that chose mercy I did. When could have chosen death. Remember this, Commander Velok, and perhaps learn from it. The transmission ended abruptly. On the view screen, the 3 warbirds held position for 17 seconds, data counted precisely. Before their cloaking devices activated and they vanished from sensors. They've withdrawn. Worf confirmed, though his voice carried more tension than relief. But sir, they may return with reinforcements. Perhaps, Picard acknowledged. He turned to Yoda, and Data detected complex emotions in the captain's expression. Respect, certainly, but also concern and something that might have been disappointment. Master Yoda, that was an impressive display of power. And restraint. But you've also revealed your capabilities to the Romulan Empire. They now know what you can do. Know what I can do, they do. Yoda agreed. But know what I will do? This, they do not. Uncertainty, sometimes more powerful than certainty it is. Fear the unknown, people do. But also, respect it they might. Given choice between enemy they cannot defeat and teacher they might learn from. He shrugged, a gesture that seemed almost human. Time will tell which path the Romulans choose. Deanna had been quiet throughout the confrontation, but now she spoke from her counselor's position, her voice carrying professional concern. Master Yoda, when you accessed that power, I felt something from you, pain. Deep pain. As though using those abilities hurt you in ways that have nothing to do with physical exhaustion. Yoda's ears drooped, and he suddenly looked every one of his 900 years. Perceptive you are, counselor. Yes. Pain there is. Use the force for domination, for control, for display of power. This walks close to the dark side. Necessary it was. Justified perhaps. But enjoy it, I must not. Glory in it, I must not. Or lost I become. Like my student. Like Anakin. He closed his eyes. The price of power, counselor, is eternal vigilance. Know this I do. And tired of paying it I am. So very tired. Picard descended from his command area and knelt before Yoda, as he had during their first meeting. Master Yoda, I understand the burden you carry. But I need to know, was there truly no other way? Could we not have negotiated, found diplomatic solution? Could we? Yoda opened his eyes, and they held ancient sorrow. Perhaps. Perhaps not. The Romulans respect strength, they do. More than words. More than ideals. Show weakness, and exploit it they will. Show strength, and consider alternatives they might. Not right this is. Not just. But true it is. And sometimes, Captain, the universe cares not for our preferences. Respond to reality, we must. Not to what we wish reality was. Riker cleared his throat. Captain, we should inform Starfleet Command immediately. The Romulans know about Master Yoda now. There's no maintaining secrecy. Agreed, Picard said, rising. Prepare a full report. Master Yoda, I'll need your account of what occurred. And, he hesitated. I'll need to know exactly what you're capable of. Not for exploitation, but for understanding. Because what happened here today will have consequences. The Romulans will spread word of a being who can disable Warbirds with his mind. Others will come, Klingon, perhaps, or Cardassians, or factions we haven't even considered. We need to be prepared. Prepare you should. Yoda acknowledged. But understand you must, what I did here. Small demonstration, it was. Fraction of what possible is. The Force, when fully embraced. He trailed off, staring at something only he could see. Planets, it can shake. Storms, it can summon. Life itself, it can create or destroy. Powers the Jedi Council forbade us from using. Powers that led my order to arrogance, to complacency, to failure. Data processed this information with growing concern. Master Yoda, you are describing abilities that approach the power levels of Q or other near-omnipotent beings we've encountered. If the Force truly allows such capabilities, approach but not match, Yoda clarified. Reality itself, Q can rewrite. I cannot. Limited I am to what exists, but influence it, shape it, channel it, this I can do. Within limits. Always limits there are. And should be. For power without limits. He looked at each of them in turn. That way madness lies. That way the dark side waits. And from the dark side, once fallen, return is nearly impossible. The bridge fell into contemplative silence, broken only by the ambient sounds of the ship's systems. Data found himself recalculating his entire threat assessment matrix. Yoda was not simply a refugee with unusual psionic abilities. He was a walking superweapon, a being whose powers could destabilize interstellar politics, whose very existence challenged the balance of power that had maintained relative peace for decades. And yet, Data reflected, analyzing Yoda's behavioral patterns and stated philosophy, the Jedi Master's greatest power might not be his Force abilities at all. It might be his restraint. His choice to disable rather than destroy. His willingness to show mercy when annihilation was clearly within his capabilities. Captain, Data ventured, I believe Master Yoda has demonstrated something more valuable than power. He has demonstrated wisdom. Perhaps that is what the Federation should focus on, not what he can do, but what he chooses not to do. Yoda's ears lifted, and approval flickered across his ancient features. Understand you begin to, Data. The Force, a tool it is. Like your phasers, like your photon torpedoes. Powerful tools, all. But tools without wisdom, without restraint, without clear purpose. He tapped his walking stick against the deck. That way, destruction lies. For self and others. Remember this, all of you. When come others do, seeking my power. When tempted you are to use me as weapon. Remember, chose mercy I did. Chose restraint. And alive, the Romulans remain, because of that choice. This, the lesson was. This, the message I sent. Hope I do they heard it. Picard returned to his command chair, settling into it with visible weariness. I hope so too, Master Yoda. Because if they didn't... He gestured at the empty view screen, where the Warbirds had been. Then this was just the opening move in a much larger game. And I'm not certain any of us are prepared for what comes next. This is so much more interesting. Q, Picard said, rising from his seat with the controlled fury Data had learned to recognize. Return us to the Enterprise immediately. We have no time for your games. Games? Q pressed his hand to his chest in mock offense. Jean-Luc, you wound me. I'm here on official continuum business. You've welcomed aboard a being from another universe. A universe, I might add, that exists in a completely separate dimensional framework from our own. Do you have any idea how cosmically improbable that is? How beautifully, wonderfully, catastrophically impossible? He snapped his fingers, and suddenly they were surrounded by swirling equations and dimensional charts that hurt to look at directly. The odds of successful transuniversal travel are approximately 1 in 10 to the power of 67. Yet here stands your little green friend, breathing your air, speaking your language, demonstrating abilities that shouldn't function outside his native dimensional parameters. Yoda had not moved or spoken, but Data observed his eyes tracking Q's movements with perfect attention. The Jedi Master showed no fear, no surprise, only watchful patience, as though omnipotent beings were simply another form of life to be understood rather than feared. "Curious you are," Yoda finally said, and Q stopped mid-gesture, his theatrical presentation interrupted by the simple observation. "Power you have. Immense power. Reality itself you can reshape. Yet here you stand, talking, explaining, seeking to understand. Why?" Q's expression shifted through several emotions in rapid succession: surprise, irritation, then something that might have been genuine interest. "Because, my diminutive friend, you shouldn't exist. The Q continuum has observed your universe. Oh yes, we're aware of it, though we've never been able to establish meaningful contact. Your force operates on principles that don't translate to our dimensional mathematics. The continuum's leading theorists spent millennia studying your reality's structure. And yet here you are, functioning perfectly well in ours. Which means either the force is more adaptable than we believed, or—" he leaned closer to Yoda, his eyes narrowing. "Or you're more remarkable than you appear." "Remarkable?" Yoda's ears twitched. "Old I am. Tired. Lost. Remarkable, I am not. Simply a teacher who failed his students, watching the consequences from very far away." "Oh, but that's where you're wrong." Q snapped his fingers again, and the courtroom transformed into a vast library, endless shelves stretching into infinity, each holding volumes that seemed to pulse with contained knowledge. "The continuum maintains records of every significant being in this galaxy. Every species that develops consciousness, every individual who impacts the great pattern. And you?" He pulled a book from a nearby shelf. Except it wasn't a book, Data realized, but a three-dimensional recording of events, scenes playing out in miniature. "You registered the moment you arrived. Not because of your power, though that's considerable, but because of what you represent." The recording showed Yoda's confrontation with the Romulans from 3 days earlier, but from perspectives impossible for standard sensors to capture. Data watched Yoda's energy signature expand across space, touching each warbird simultaneously, disabling weapon systems through pure intention channeled through quantum connections. But more than that, he saw the ripples. Each action Yoda took created cascading probability changes, futures branching and diverging based on choices not yet made. "See that?" Q pointed at the branching timelines. "That's you, every moment you exist in this universe. Every interaction creates new possibilities, new futures, new potential disasters or triumphs. You're a walking nexus point, Yoda. A living variable in an equation the universe is still trying to solve." Q's tone shifted, losing some of its theatrical mockery, becoming almost serious. "The continuum is concerned. Not frightened, we don't do frightened, but concerned. Because you're bringing something into our reality that doesn't belong here. And the question is, will it integrate peacefully, or will it tear everything apart?" Picard had been listening intently, and now he spoke with the diplomatic precision Data had always admired. "Q, what exactly are you suggesting?" "That Master Yoda poses some sort of existential threat to our universe?" "I'm suggesting," Q said, turning to face Picard directly, "that his very existence here is an experiment with unpredictable results. The force he describes, this universal energy field, it's beginning to establish itself in our reality. Not replacing our physical laws, but overlaying them. Creating new possibilities. Already, we've detected 17 individuals across the Federation who are spontaneously developing force sensitivity. Minor abilities, true, enhanced intuition, slight precognition, marginal telekinesis. But growing. Spreading. Like a virus, if you'll forgive the crude metaphor. Data's processors accelerated to maximum capacity. You are claiming that Master Yoda's presence is actively altering our universe's fundamental structure? That the Force is becoming indigenous to our reality? Not just claiming, Tin Man. Observing. Q gestured, and new data appeared, streams of quantum information showing probability matrices shifting, consciousness patterns evolving, energy fields establishing resonance across previously unconnected systems. In your universe, psionic abilities are limited by biology, by evolution, by neural structures developed over millions of years. But the Force? It doesn't care about biology. It cares about consciousness, about intention, about connection. And consciousness, dear Data, is far more promiscuous than mere biology. It spreads. It evolves. It adapts. Yoda had been absorbing this information with characteristic calm, but now he spoke, and his voice carried weight that made even Q pause. Know this, you did. Before brought me here, you knew. The disturbance you sensed. The changes you observed. Yet intervene you did not. Prevent my arrival you could have. Return me immediately you could have. Why not? Q's expression became unreadable, a rare state for him, Data noted. Because the continuum is divided. Some of us believe you should be sent back immediately, that the risk of universal contamination is too great. Others argue that your arrival was predestined, that the Force choosing to establish itself in our reality is a natural evolution we have no right to prevent. And a few of us. He paused, studying Yoda with something approaching respect. A few of us wonder if perhaps this is what the universe needs. A counterbalance to technology, to pure rationality, to the cold equations that govern most of existence. Something that values wisdom over knowledge, connection over isolation, balance over absolute order. And you? Yoda asked. What belief do you, Q? Q was silent for a long moment, an eternity by his standards. When he finally spoke, his voice carried none of its usual mockery. I believe you're dangerous, Yoda. Not because you're evil or destructive, but because you're transformative. Everything you touch changes. Everyone who encounters you begins to question their assumptions about reality, about power, about what's possible. And questions. He smiled, but it was a sad smile, tired in a way that suggested depths even Q rarely revealed. Questions lead to chaos. Chaos leads to suffering. The continuum exists partially to prevent exactly that kind of cosmic disruption. We maintain order. We establish boundaries. We ensure that reality remains comprehensible, predictable, safe. Safe. Yoda repeated, and there was profound understanding in his tone. But stagnant. Fixed. Unable to grow, unable to change. Afraid of what new possibilities might bring. This I understand. The Jedi Order, the same mistake made. Preserved tradition we did. Maintained order. And blind to change we became. Until too late it was. Riker stood suddenly, his command instincts overriding his caution about interrupting Q. This is fascinating philosophy, but what's the practical result? Is the continuum going to force Master Yoda to leave? Are you going to undo whatever changes his presence has caused? Q turned to Riker with an expression of genuine surprise. Force? Number 1, the Q continuum doesn't force. We test. We observe. We nudge. But the actual decisions? He gestured broadly at everyone present. Those belong to you limited, linear beings who insist on exercising free will. No, I'm not here to remove Yoda. I'm here to determine whether you, Picard, your crew, your precious Federation, can handle the consequences of his presence. Whether you're wise enough to learn from him without becoming dependent on him. Whether you're strong enough to face what's coming without using him as a weapon. What's coming? Picard demanded, his command voice cutting through the cosmic ambiguity. Q, if you know of a specific threat. Threats, Jean-Luc, are everywhere. The Romulans, who now fear and covet Yoda's power. The Borg, who will inevitably detect his unique energy signature and attempt assimilation. The Dominion from the Gamma Quadrant, who would see him as either ally or obstacle to their expansion. And others, factions you haven't even encountered yet, drawn by the Force's presence like moths to flame. Q's expression hardened. But the real threat? That's you? Humanity. The Federation. You'll want to study him, understand him, replicate his abilities. You'll want to create Force-sensitive soldiers, Force-enhanced diplomats, Force-powered ships. You'll see opportunity where you should see responsibility. And when you've opened that door fully, he snapped his fingers, and they were suddenly surrounded by visions of possible futures, Starfleet officers wielding lightsabers, Federation ships powered by Force crystals, entire worlds reshaped by telekinetic engineering. When you've made the Force just another tool in your technological arsenal, you'll have lost what makes it special. What makes it sacred. What makes it worth having at all. Yoda's eyes had closed during Q's speech, and when he opened them again, they held terrible clarity. See these futures I do. Many paths forward there are. Most lead to suffering. To conflict. To the dark side's corruption spreading through new galaxy. But some paths. A small smile touched his features. Some paths lead to balance. To understanding. To Federation learning not to use the Force, but to be worthy of it. This why I remain. This why I accepted your hospitality, I did, Captain Picard. Not to be protected. Not to be studied. But to teach. If willing to learn you are. Willing? Picard said quietly. Master Yoda, I've spent my career learning. From every species we encounter, from every situation we face. The question is not whether we're willing, but whether we're capable. Whether we can integrate your teachings without corrupting them, without weaponizing them, without falling into the exact trap Q describes. Q laughed, a genuine laugh, without cruelty or mockery. Now that's the question, isn't it? Can humanity grow beyond its adolescent need to turn everything into a tool? Can the Federation embrace power without needing to control it? He turned to Yoda. What do you think, little master? Can they? Yoda was silent for a long time, his gaze moving from face to face. Picard, Riker, Data, Worf, Beverly, Geordi, Deanna. Data found himself subject to scrutiny that felt like it penetrated past his positronic brain, past his physical components, to whatever essence might constitute his consciousness. No, I do not, Yoda finally admitted. Hope I have. See in them, I do, the qualities needed, courage, compassion, curiosity, restraint. But tested, they have not been. Not truly. Not by power that corrupts, by temptation that seduces, by darkness that whispers promises of security through domination. He looked up at Q. Test them, you will? Oh, I don't need to, Q replied cheerfully. The universe will do that all on its own. I just wanted to meet you before the chaos really begins. To take your measure. To see if you're truly as wise as your reputation, in your own universe, suggests. He paused, then added with uncharacteristic seriousness, and to warn you. The continuum may be divided about your presence, but we're unanimous on one point. If your force begins to destabilize our reality, if it threatens to unravel the fundamental laws that keep existence coherent, we will act. Not to punish you, but to contain the damage. Which means Picard and his crew need to succeed. They need to learn from you without losing themselves. Because if they fail, Q's voice dropped. Then the continuum will have no choice but to remove you forcibly. And trust me, Yoda, you don't want to see what that looks like. Threaten me you do. Yoda observed without apparent concern. But also warn me. Protect the universe you seek to. This I understand. This I respect. Know this though, Q came here by accident, I may have. Or by fate. Or by the Force's will. But purpose, I have found here. Meaning in teaching these people. And surrender that purpose, I will not. Not to Q. Not to the continuum. Not even to protect myself. Q studied Yoda for a long moment, and Data detected something in the omnipotent being's expression that might have been approval. You know, I think I actually like you. Which is unfortunate, because if you fail, I'll probably be the one assigned to remove you. And I hate disappointing new friends." With a snap of his fingers, the cosmic courtroom dissolved. The senior staff found themselves back in the observation lounge, seated exactly as they had been before Q's interruption. No time had passed. The chronometer showed the same second it had when reality twisted. But everything felt different now, weighted with implications and warnings they couldn't ignore. "Did that really happen?" Beverly asked quietly, breaking the stunned silence. "Q never does anything that isn't real," Picard replied, his voice heavy with the burden of new understanding. "He may manipulate perception, but the information he provides is always genuine, even when wrapped in theatricality." He turned to Yoda. "Master Yoda, I need to ask you directly. Are you willing to teach us? Knowing now what Q has revealed, that the Force is spreading through our reality, that your presence is fundamentally altering our universe's structure, are you prepared to accept responsibility for those changes?" Yoda met Picard's gaze without hesitation. "Responsibility, always I accept. For my failures, for my successes, for every consequence of every action. Teach you I will. Guide you I will. But control the Force's spread I cannot. Life finds a way, as your Dr. Malcolm said. Energy flows where it will. Consciousness evolves in directions beyond any being's control. What I can do, what I will do, is ensure that when the Force manifests in your people, in your species, in your galaxy, trained they will be. Guided. Given wisdom to accompany power. This, the Jedi Order's original purpose was. This I will fulfill. Here. Now. For you." Data processed the implications of that commitment, and found himself computing probability matrices that defied logical analysis. The Force spreading through Federation space. Starfleet officers developing abilities beyond technological enhancement. Entire worlds beginning to resonate with an energy field that connected all living things. It was revolutionary. Terrifying. And, perhaps, inevitable. "Then we have work to do," Picard said, standing with renewed purpose. "But first, I need to contact Starfleet Command. They need to know about Q's warning. About the potential spread of Force sensitivity. About the need for training protocols and ethical guidelines before this situation spirals beyond control." "Spiraling it already is," Yoda said quietly. "But control? Never was ours to have. Only guidance. Only wisdom. Only hope that when faced with power, choose wisely people will." His eyes held ancient sorrow mixed with fragile optimism. "Failed once, I did, to guide power properly. Redeem that failure, perhaps this time, I can. If worthy students you prove to be. If strong enough your Federation is. If wise enough your civilization becomes. And if we're not? War fast?" His warrior's pragmatism cutting to the core question. Yoda's expression became grave. "Then Q, the least of your problems, will be. And darkness, once again, will rise. Here. In your galaxy? Because of me. And alone, I will be, to face it. Again." The USS Enterprise received new orders 18 hours after Q's departure. Proceed to Starbase 157 for classified consultations regarding the Yoda situation, as Starfleet Command had begun calling it in encrypted communiques. Picard found the designation both clinically efficient and vaguely insulting. Reducing a 900-year-old Jedi Master to a bureaucratic classification seemed to miss the point entirely. What Starfleet Command hadn't mentioned in their orders was who would be waiting at the starbase. The Klingon High Council had sent an observer. Chancellor Garan materialized on the transporter pad flanked by 2 members of his personal guard, his distinctive wide-eyed stare sweeping across the transporter room with predatory assessment. He wore full ceremonial armor, and his DK tog hung prominently at his belt, a clear statement that he came as warrior first, diplomat second. "Captain Picard?" Garan announced without preamble, his gravelly voice carrying across the chamber. "You harbor a being of great power. A warrior who disabled 3 Romulan Warbirds without firing a shot. The Empire wishes to meet this. Yoda. Picard maintained diplomatic composure despite the sudden complication. Chancellor, Master Yoda is a guest aboard my vessel, not a prisoner or a curiosity to be displayed. If you wish to meet him, I can arrange. I do not request, Picard. I demand. Garan descended from the transporter pad with deliberate steps. Word of this warrior's abilities has reached QNOS. Some on the High Council believe he could teach our warriors new methods of combat. Others fear he represents a threat to the Empire's military superiority. I am here to determine which is true. Before Picard could respond diplomatically, or prevent disaster, a familiar voice echoed from the corridor beyond the transporter room. Demand you do? Interesting approach, that is. Yoda entered, moving with surprising speed despite his walking stick, with Worf following close behind wearing an expression of mingled concern and resignation. The Jedi Master stopped several meters from Garan, tilting his head to study the Klingon Chancellor with unsettling intensity. Much anger in you I sense, Yoda observed. Much pride. Much fear beneath both. Prove yourself constantly you must. Show strength always. Rest never. Exhausting, such existence must be. Garan's eyes widened further, an impressive feat given their natural prominence, and his hand moved toward his decayed tog. You dare analyze me like some specimen? I am Chancellor of the Klingon High Council. I have killed enemies who? Killed enemies, yes, Yoda interrupted calmly. Impressed I am not. Kill any warrior can. Easy death is to give. But restraint? Mercy? Wisdom to know when not to kill? He shook his head slowly. These true strength require. These, the warrior's ultimate test are. The silence in the transporter room became absolute. Data, observing from his position near the control console, calculated a 73% probability of imminent violence. Worf's hand had moved to his phaser, and Picard had shifted into a ready stance despite having no weapon. Then something remarkable happened. Garan laughed. It was not the mocking laugh of a victor or the cruel laugh of a tyrant. It was genuine, surprised amusement. The sound of someone encountering unexpected truth delivered with such audacity that anger became impossible. You have fire, little one, Garan said, his hand moving away from his blade. You stand before a Klingon Chancellor without fear, without weapons, and speak truths that most would whisper only in private. This is courage. This is strength. He turned to Picard. Captain, I wish to speak with this Yoda privately. Warrior to warrior. If he agrees. Yoda's ears lifted. Private conversation I accept. But warriors neither of us are. Not truly. You, a leader who remembers war. I, a teacher who survived war. Different these things are. Then we shall discuss the difference. Garan replied. Come. Your observation lounge will serve. What followed was, Data reflected later, one of the most extraordinary diplomatic encounters in Federation history, though calling it diplomatic might be generous. In the observation lounge, Garan dismissed his guards and sat across from Yoda with the directness characteristic of Klingon culture. Picard had insisted on remaining present, and Yoda had not objected, so they formed an unusual triangle around the conference table. Tell me of war, Garan demanded without preamble. Real war, not the sanitized Federation version where everyone dies cleanly and missions succeed through diplomacy. You speak as one who has seen civilizations burn, who has watched orders collapse, who has survived when others did not. These are warriors' experiences. Yet you claim to be a teacher? Teacher, warrior, survivor, all these I am, Yoda acknowledged. In my galaxy, the Clone Wars fought we did. 3 years of conflict across thousands of worlds. Billions dead. Jedi Knights, generals we became. Commanders of armies. Tacticians of death. His voice dropped. And lost ourselves we did. Forgot we did, that peacekeepers we were meant to be. Warriors we became instead. And when the war ended, he paused, ancient pain flickering across his features. Ended, we did too. Betrayed by the very soldiers we commanded. Slaughtered by the republic we protected. Because warriors, not teachers, they saw us as. Threats, not guardians. Garan leaned forward, his intensity focused like a blade. Then you understand. Power without the will to use it is worthless. Your Jedi Order fell because they hesitated. Because they forgot that sometimes, the only answer is violence. The only solution is death. No, Yoda said firmly. Fell we did because violence, our first answer became. Because forgot we did that war, the last resort should be. Because comfortable with death, we grew too. Because commanding armies, we mistook for protecting peace. He met Garen's gaze directly. Understand Klingon culture, I begin to. Honor through combat. Glory through victory. Death in battle, the highest achievement. But ask you, I do, if glory through death you seek, then what value has life? If honor requires violence, then what honor exists in peace? Garen's expression shifted through several emotions, anger, certainly, but also something deeper. Consideration. Perhaps even doubt. Peace, Garan said slowly, is what warriors fight for, so that others may live without fear. This is what Kallus taught. This is what the Empire defends. And when defending becomes aggression? Yoda countered. When strength becomes domination? When honor becomes excuse for conquest? Lines blur, Chancellor. Intentions change. And before realize it, you do become what fighting against you thought you were. Picard had remained silent, but now he spoke with careful precision. Master Yoda, Chancellor Garan, perhaps you're both describing different aspects of the same truth. The Klingon Empire values strength, yes, but strength in service of protecting what matters. The Jedi valued peace, but recognize that sometimes peace must be defended. The question isn't whether violence is ever justified. It's about what principles guide that decision. Wisdom, Captain Picard speaks. Yoda agreed. But principles, without practice, are empty words. Garan, tell me, when last did you face true choice? When last could have killed enemy, but chose mercy instead? When last could have claimed victory, but chose restraint? These moments define a warrior's character. These choices reveal true strength. Garan was silent for a long moment, his gaze turning inward. When he spoke again, his voice carried less bravado, more genuine reflection. When I became Chancellor, I defeated Duras in personal combat. Could have executed his entire house for their treason. Many urged me to do exactly that, eliminate the threat completely. Instead, I allowed his family to live, though stripped of honor. Some called this weakness. Said I should have shown strength through elimination. And why chose mercy, did you? Yoda asked. Because, Garan said slowly, Kallus taught that honor can be regained. That even the fallen can rise again if given opportunity. Killing Duras was necessary. He was a traitor. But his children? They were not responsible for their father's choices. To punish them for his crimes would have been unjust. He looked uncomfortable admitting this, as though revealing vulnerability. Unjust, yes, Yoda confirmed. But more than that, weak, such action would have been. Easy, to kill those who cannot defend themselves. Difficult, to show mercy when power you possess. Strength, not in domination, lies. Strength, in restraint, lives. This your Kallus understood. This you understood, in that moment. Remember that understanding, Chancellor. Build on it. For leader who knows when not to fight, more dangerous than leader who only knows how to kill. Garan studied Yoda with newfound respect, and Data observed the Klingon's body language shifting from confrontational to contemplative. You would have made an interesting Klingon, Yoda. Though perhaps you already are one, in spirit if not in blood. We honor teachers who speak truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. We honor warriors who have survived not just battle, but the consequences of battle. We honor leaders who carry the weight of their decisions without excuse. He stood, and this time when he approached Yoda, there was no threat, only acknowledgement. I came to assess whether you were threat or asset. I leave understanding you are neither. You are reflection. Mirrors showing what we are and what we could become. The High Council will hear of this. Some will want to recruit you. Others will want to eliminate you. But I. He placed his hand over his heart in traditional Klingon salute. I will tell them that Yoda is to be respected. Left in peace. And perhaps, if he is willing, learn from. Yoda returned the gesture with his own hand over his heart, an acknowledgement that transcended cultural boundaries. Respect mutual it is. Learn from you, I have as well. Klingon honor, misunderstood I had. Thought it simple warrior code. But see now I do, honor with responsibility you pair. Glory with duty. Strength with purpose. Different from Jedi way, yes. But parallel, perhaps. Different paths to similar truths. The moment was interrupted by Worf's comm badge chirping urgently. Bridge to Lieutenant Worf. Captain, we're receiving a distress call from the Cardassian border. A Federation colony is under attack. Picard's expression hardened instantly. Specify. What kind of attack? Unclear, sir, came the tactical officer's voice from the bridge. The transmission is fragmented, but they're reporting an unknown vessel. No response to hails. Weapons fire detected. Casualties confirmed. They're requesting immediate assistance. Garan's demeanor shifted back to warrior alertness. Cardassians? Or something else? Unknown, Picard replied, already moving toward the door. Chancellor, I'm afraid our discussion will have to be cut short. Master Yoda. Come with you, I will, Yoda said, his tone brooking no argument. If people suffer, if help they need, then present, a Jedi should be. This, the way is. They arrived on the bridge to find organized chaos. Officers moving with efficient purpose while data streamed across multiple displays. The view screen showed a Federation colony on a Class M planet, with visible atmospheric disturbances indicating recent weapons fire. Report, Picard ordered, settling into his command chair. Colony of New Rigel, sir, Data said from Ops. Population approximately 11,000, mostly human with significant Vulcan and Andorian minorities. They report an unknown vessel entered orbit 37 minutes ago, ignored all hails, and began firing on surface installations. Colonial shields are holding, but power reserves are depleting rapidly. They estimate shield failure in 42 minutes at current rate of bombardment. The attacking vessel? Riker asked. Data's fingers flew across his console. Design configuration unknown. No match in Starfleet database. Power signature is anomalous. Energy readings that don't correspond to known weapons technology. And something else, Captain. The vessel is not targeting population centers. It appears to be specifically attacking the colony's power generation facilities, communication arrays, and transportation hubs. Infrastructure, not people. Yoda had moved to stand beside Picard's chair, his small stature contrasting sharply with the gravity of the situation. Sense something, I do. The attacking ship, feel it, I can. Life aboard there is. Consciousness. But strange it feels. Wrong. As though. He paused, concentrating. As though aware they are, but not awake. Moving but not thinking. Attacking but not choosing. Drones? Worf suggested. Automated systems? No, Yoda said firmly. Life there is. But controlled. Dominated. The Force twisted around them, I sense. Dark side, perhaps. Or something similar. Something that bends will to external purpose. Garan, who had taken a position near tactical, growled his assessment. Then they are slaves. And slaves fight without honor, without choice. Defeating them proves nothing. Finding their masters, that is where glory lies. Glory can wait, Picard said tersely. Right now, we need to stop that vessel before the colony shields fail. Helm maximum warp. ETA to New Rigel? 18 minutes at warp 9, Captain. Engage. Yellow alert. Mr. Worf, have weapons ready but do not target until we've assessed the situation fully. If Master Yoda is correct and the crew is being controlled against their will, we're dealing with a hostage situation, not a combat scenario. The Enterprise leaped to warp speed, and Picard used the transit time to gather more information. Data pulled up every sensor scan the colony had managed to transmit before their communication arrays were damaged. The attacking vessel was approximately 200 meters in length, using propulsion technology that created unusual subspace harmonics, and wielding directed energy weapons that seemed to operate on principles somewhere between disruptors and phasers. Master Yoda, Picard said quietly, you mentioned sensing the crew's state. Can you determine how many beings are aboard that vessel? Can you sense anything about who or what is controlling them? Yoda closed his eyes, extending his awareness across the light years of space between the Enterprise and the colony. Data watched his energy signature intensify on internal sensors, that characteristic force field expanding, reaching, touching quantum possibilities across impossible distances. 17 life forms, Yoda murmured. Humanoid mostly. Perhaps 1 or 2 non-humanoid. Young they feel. Inexperienced. Afraid. His eyes snapped open, and they held horror. Children, some of them are. Adolescents. Pressed into service, controlled by presence I cannot clearly sense. Something shielding itself from the Force. Something that learned, perhaps, how to hide from my awareness. Dangerous, this is. Very dangerous. Children? Beverly's voice carried shock and professional concern. Someone is using children as soldiers? Not just soldiers, Yoda corrected grimly. Slaves. Puppets. Their wills suppressed. Their minds dominated. And whoever controls them. His expression became graver than Data had yet witnessed. Knows of me. Shields from the Force. Prepared they were, for Jedi awareness. Which means, Picard finished, understanding dawning. They knew you were here. They knew you would sense their attack. This isn't random piracy or territorial aggression. He looked directly at Yoda. They're testing you. Drawing you out. Forcing you to act. Yoda's ears drooped with the weight of terrible certainty. A trap, perhaps this is. Or challenge. Or test, as you say. But children suffer. Colony threatened. Regardless of purpose, act I must. Even if into darkness, they attempt to lead me. Even if fall into trap, I may. Because first lesson of the Jedi, this was, protect those who cannot protect themselves. Regardless of cost. Regardless of risk. Regardless of fear. Then we act, Picard declared. But carefully. Together. Mr. Data ETA? 3 minutes, Captain? Garan had been listening intently, and now he spoke with warrior's directness. Captain, I request permission to join any boarding party. If children are being held captive, honor demands their liberation. This is not a battle I can ignore. Picard nodded slowly. Granted, Chancellor. But you'll follow Starfleet protocols on this. We're rescuing hostages, not conducting assault. Master Yoda, I assume you'll be joining the away team? Assume correctly you do, Yoda confirmed. But remember, all of you, whoever controls that ship, expects me. Prepared for me, they are. Underestimate them, we must not. Careful, we must be. And ready for consequences we may not foresee. The Enterprise dropped out of warp at the edge of New Rigel's system, and the viewscreen immediately revealed a scene of methodical devastation. The attacking vessel hung in low orbit like a predator maintaining its grip on wounded prey, its angular hull reflecting the planet's sun with a dull, organic sheen that made Data's visual processors struggle to classify its composition. Below, on the surface, fires burned across 3 major settlements where power generators had exploded under sustained bombardment. "Hailing frequencies open," Worf reported, his voice tight with controlled aggression. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. You are firing upon a Federation colony in violation of interstellar law. Cease your attack immediately and prepare to be boarded for humanitarian inspection." The response came not through audio channels but through something far more disturbing. The alien ship's hull rippled, actually rippled, like living tissue responding to stimulus, and a face appeared on the view screen. Not transmitted through conventional technology, but somehow projected directly into the Enterprise's visual systems, bypassing normal communication protocols entirely. The face was humanoid but wrong in ways that defied simple description. Its features constantly shifted, as though multiple beings were occupying the same space simultaneously, their identities bleeding into one another. When it spoke, dozens of voices emerged in terrible harmony. "Picard. Captain? Leader. We know you. We know your vessel. We know your passenger." The composite voice elongated the last word, making it sound both curious and hungry. "The one who should not be. The one who tears reality. The one called Yoda." Yoda had stepped forward to stand beside Picard, his small frame radiating intensity that Data's sensors could barely quantify. "Know me you do. But know you I do not. Show yourself. Truly. Not this mask. This illusion. This gathering of stolen faces." The composite face smiled with too many mouths. "We are the amalgam. We are 17 who became one. We are children who were taken, adults who were consumed, consciousness merged into singular purpose. We serve the one who waits. The one who watches. The one who learned of the Force from echoes across dimensional barriers and now seeks to claim it. To understand it. To master it. Children," Beverly whispered from her station, horror evident in her voice. "Those 17 life signs Master Yoda sensed, they've been merged into some kind of Gestalt entity? Data access to xenobiology databases at maximum speed, cross-referencing known species capable of consciousness merging. Captain, there are several species capable of forming group minds, the binars, certain trill configurations, neuroparasites from Deniva, but none that forcibly merge unwilling participants. This suggests technological enhancement of natural abilities or someone learned new technique," Yoda finished grimly. "The Force used to bind minds together. Dark side application. Forbidden by Jedi Council, such practices were. For this exact reason, individual identity, destroyed it is. Free will, eliminated. Only the binder's purpose remains." The amalgam's shifting face focused on Yoda with disturbing intensity. "You understand. Good. Then you understand why we must test you. Our master wishes to know, is the Force worth claiming? Is this power that crosses universes worthy of study? Worthy of consumption?" The face split into a dozen smiles simultaneously. "Defend the colony, Jedi. Save the children who remain separate. Stop us if you can. Our master watches. Our master evaluates. Our master decides." The transmission cut abruptly, and the alien vessel resumed its bombardment of the colony with renewed intensity. "Shields at 17%. Came the frantic transmission from New Rigel's surface. "We've got structural failures in sections 4 and 7. Evacuation protocols are underway, but we need more time." Picard's decision was instantaneous. "Mr. Worf, target their weapons arrays with surgical precision. Disable, do not destroy. There are hostages aboard that vessel, 17 consciousnesses that may still be recoverable. Helm, move us between the amalgam ship and the colony. Use our shields to absorb their fire." "Captain," Riker cautioned, "if they redirect their weapons to target us, then we'll know their true purpose is confrontation with Master Yoda, not destruction of the colony. Either way, we'll have our answer." Picard glanced at Yoda. Master, any insights before we engage? Yoda's eyes had closed, his awareness extending outward through the Force. The amalgam, feel them I can. 17 minds crushed together. Screaming, some are. Silent, others are. And beneath all, the binder. The one who holds them together. Not aboard the ship, this one is. Distant. Watching through their eyes. Controlling through their merged will. Cut the connection, and 17 beings, perhaps we save. But find the Master. His eyes opened, blazing with determination and fury that Data had never seen from the gentle teacher. Find the Master we must. And this we must. For no being should such slavery endure. No consciousness should such violation suffer. The Enterprise moved into position between the amalgam vessel and the planet, and Worf's tactical display lit up with target solutions. Firing phasers. Surgical strikes on weapons emplacements. Orange beams lanced out, precisely calibrated to disable rather than destroy. They struck the amalgam ship's hull, and for a moment, it seemed the attack would succeed. Then the vessel's organic surface rippled again, and the phaser energy was simply absorbed. Drawn into the hull like water into parched earth. Direct hit, no effect, Worf reported, frustration evident in his tone. Captain, their hull is adapting to our weapon's frequency in real time. Similar to Borg technology but faster. Much faster. Borg? Garan growled from his position near tactical. If the collective has developed new adaptation protocols. Not Borg. Data interrupted, his analysis complete. The adaptation mechanism is biological, not technological. The ship itself appears to be partially organic, possibly a hybrid of living tissue and constructed materials. It's not adapting through shield modulation but through actual cellular evolution. I estimate it will develop immunity to our entire phaser range within 4.3 minutes. Yoda's expression had become distant, his awareness focused on something beyond the physical battle. Not the ship, adapting it is. The amalgam. 17 minds working as one. Learning. Growing. Evolving. The Force they use to accelerate what evolution would take millennia to accomplish. The Master taught them well. Too well. Then we need a different approach. Picard said decisively. Commander Riker, assemble a boarding party. Security detail, medical team, and... He looked at Yoda. Master, I assume. Assume correctly you do. Yoda confirmed. Face them, I must. Free them, I will. But Captain, warn your people. Once aboard, mental defenses, they must maintain. The amalgam seeks to grow. To add consciousness to its collective. Strong will, required it is. Weak minds, vulnerable they are. Beverly had already moved to gather medical supplies. I'm coming. If there's any chance of separating those merged consciousnesses, I'll need to be there to stabilize them. As will I. Garan announced. I have seen mind control before, during the Klingon Civil War. Duraza's house used neural disruptors to create slave soldiers. We learned methods to break such control. Perhaps they will be useful here. Within minutes, the boarding party assembled in Transporter Room 3. Riker, Worf, Beverly, Garan with 2 of his guards, a 6-person security detail, and Yoda at the center of it all, his small form somehow dominating the space through sheer presence. Remember, Picard's voice came through the comm system. Your primary objective is hostage rescue. 17 beings are trapped in that collective. Separating them is the priority. Capturing the vessel is secondary. Your own safety is. He paused, and Data detected emotional conflict in the captain's voice. Your safety matters, number 1. Don't take unnecessary risks. Understood, Captain. Riker replied. Energize. The transporter beam caught them, and Data monitored their matter stream carefully, watching for any anomalies in the transfer. The amalgam vessel's hull composition was unusual enough that transport might be disrupted, but the Enterprise's systems compensated smoothly. Within seconds, the away team materialized aboard the alien ship. What they found defied every expectation. The interior wasn't a ship at all, not in any conventional sense. It was a living space, organic walls that pulsed with bioluminescent light, floors that felt disturbingly warm beneath their feet, an air that tasted of copper and ozone, and something indefinable that made human sinuses ache. Corridors branched in non-Euclidean patterns that hurt to observe directly, and ambient sound echoed with harmonics that suggested the walls themselves were breathing. Tricorder readings are inconsistent, Beverly reported, studying her medical scanner with professional confusion. I'm detecting 17 distinct biosignatures, but they're all occupying the same approximate location. Approximately 40 meters ahead, bearing 095. The bridge, Worf surmised, checking his phaser was set to heavy stun. Where the merged entity maintains control. Where the children suffer. Yoda corrected quietly. His eyes had closed again, navigating not through sight but through force awareness. This way. Follow. But prepare yourselves. What phase? We are about to understanding tests. Compassion tests. Everything tests. They moved through the organic corridors in tactical formation, security officers maintaining perimeter, medical personnel protected in the center, Yoda at the point despite his size. Twice, the walls themselves attempted to restrain them. Pseudopods of living tissue extending to grab at legs and arms. But Yoda's presence seemed to discourage the ship's autonomous defenses. Where he walked, the organic matter retreated, as though even semi-sentient biological systems recognized something in him that demanded respect. The bridge, if it could be called such, was a horror. 17 beings sat in a circular chamber, each in a biomechanical chair that had partially fused with their bodies. Humans mostly, but also 2 Vulcans, an Andorian, and something Data's database couldn't immediately classify. Their ages ranged from adolescence to early adulthood, none older than 25. Neural filaments connected each skull to a central nexus, a pulsing mass of tissue and technology that hung from the ceiling like an obscene chandelier. And their eyes, all 17 pairs moved in perfect synchronization, tracking the away team's entrance with disturbing unity. Welcome, they said in chorus, their individual voices creating that composite sound the Enterprise had heard earlier. We are the amalgam. We are 17 who serve one purpose. We are the test. Beverly's medical tricorder was practically screaming alerts. Captain, these people are being kept alive through that neural nexus. It's regulating their autonomic functions, suppressing individual consciousness, forcing synchronized neural activity. Separating them without proper medical facilities could kill them. Could kill all of them. Then bring them, Yoda said quietly, moving forward despite Worf's protective gesture. The Jedi Master approached the nearest victim, a human girl, perhaps 16 years old, with neural filaments buried deep in her temples. Her eyes tracked Yoda's movement, but there was no individual awareness behind them, only the amalgam's collective consciousness. You want to free us, the amalgam said to all 17 mouths. You want to separate us. To restore individual identity. But we are more than we were. Stronger. Faster. Smarter. Why would we choose isolation over unity? Why would we choose weakness over strength? Because, Yoda replied, reaching up to touch the girl's hand gently. Strength without choice is slavery. Unity without consent is violation. And isolation? His voice carried infinite sadness. Isolation, the price of identity is. But precious, that identity is. Irreplaceable. Sacred. Yours was taken. Stolen. By one who values power over person. By one who sees consciousness as resource to exploit. He looked up at the neural nexus, and his expression hardened. Show yourself, Master. Hiding behind children you are. Coward, this makes you. Weak. Unworthy of the force you seek. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the neural nexus pulsed with dark energy, and a presence made itself known, not physically present, but projected through the connection. Data's sensors detected massive energy transfer from somewhere outside the system, consciousness beaming across light years through the neural link. And a voice spoke, singular this time, not composite. Cold. Ancient. Amused. Yoda. Grand Master of the fallen Jedi Order. I have waited to meet you. Across dimensions, across realities, I have studied the Force through fragments and echoes. And now, here you stand. In flesh. In power. Ready to be evaluated. Yoda's expression became absolutely calm, but Data detected his energy signature intensifying dangerously. Know your voice, I do not. Know your purpose, I understand. Seek the Force, you do. But understand it, you do not. These children, test subjects, you see them as tools. But wrong you are. Dead you will be if continue this path you do. The voice laughed, a sound like ice cracking over deep water. Threats from a refugee? How amusing. You cannot even return to your own universe, Yoda. You are stranded here, powerless to change anything that matters. These 17? They are my gift to you. Free them, if you can. Separate their consciousness without killing them. Demonstrate your vaunted Jedi healing abilities. Show me the Force is worth claiming. Or fail, and watch them die, and know that your weakness caused their death. Choose, Master Yoda. The test begins now. The neural nexus pulsed violently, and all 17 bodies convulsed in their chairs, screaming in perfect unison as the Force binding them together intensified, crushing their individual identities under overwhelming pressure. And Yoda, ancient teacher of compassion and restraint, closed his eyes and reached out through the Force, not to fight, but to heal. Not to dominate, but to liberate. Not to destroy the darkness, but to bring light into it. The real battle had begun. The neural nexus pulsed with malevolent energy, and 17 voices screamed in agony as their merged consciousness was compressed tighter, individual identities crushed beneath the weight of forced unity. Beverly's tricorder shrieked warnings, neural activity spiking to lethal levels, synaptic pathways overloading, brain tissue beginning to hemorrhage from the impossible strain. We have maybe 90 seconds before permanent brain damage, Beverly shouted over the screams. Master Yoda, whatever you're going to do. Quiet, Yoda commanded, and the single word carried such authority that even the screamings seemed to diminish slightly. His eyes remained closed, his small frame utterly still except for the slight rise and fall of breathing. Around him, the air began to shimmer with energy that made Data's sensors fluctuate wildly. Quantum effects manifesting in normal space, probability fields bending, reality itself becoming malleable around the Jedi Master's concentrated will. Riker had his phaser trained on the neural nexus. If we destroy that thing, kill them all, you would, Yoda said without opening his eyes. The nexus, keeping them alive now, it is. Life support it provides. Remove it suddenly, and cascade failure follows. Heart stop. Lungs cease. 17 deaths in 17 seconds. Then what do we do? Worf demanded, his warrior's pragmatism seeking actionable solutions. Trust, Yoda replied simply. And if believe in the Force, you can help. What happened next would be debated in Starfleet medical journals for years to come, analyzed by xenopsychology departments across the Federation, and studied by Vulcan meditation masters seeking to understand consciousness itself. Yoda extended his hands, and from his small form erupted a wave of pure, luminous energy. Not destructive, the opposite. Healing. Restorative. Life-affirming in ways that transcended biological processes and touched something fundamental about existence itself. The energy washed over the 17 victims, and Data watched in fascination as their individual neural patterns, which had been crushed into synchronization, began to separate, to differentiate, to reclaim their unique signatures. But the dark presence controlling the Nexus fought back. The voice that had spoken earlier now screamed through the neural link, and shadow energy poured into the chamber. Darkness that moved like living smoke, corrupting and consuming, feeding on fear and pain and despair. The dark side, Yoda growled, his calm fracturing slightly under the assault. Strong it is here. Fed by suffering it is. Grown powerful on these children's torment. Alone, overcome it I cannot. Help I need. Garan stepped forward without hesitation. I am no mystic, Yoda. No psychic. I am a warrior. What help can I offer against forces I cannot see or strike? Your strength, Yoda said. Your will. Your determination. The Force flows through all living things. Through you, through these guards, through everyone here. Lend me your strength. Think of nothing but freeing these children. Focus your will. And the Force channel it I shall. Garan looked skeptical for exactly 1 second, then his Klingon pragmatism asserted itself. If this worked, honor would be served. If it failed, they would all die together, which was also honorable. He placed his hand on Yoda's shoulder. Then take what you need, teacher. My strength is yours. Data observed something remarkable occur. Garan's neural activity spiked, not dangerously, but in patterns suggesting intense concentration. And somehow, impossibly, Yoda's energy field expanded to encompass the Klingon Chancellor, drawing on his life force not parasitically but cooperatively, amplifying both their presences through resonance. Beverly understood immediately. She moved to Yoda's other side, placing her hand on his arm. I'm a doctor. I've dedicated my life to healing. If that intention helps, take it. Worf followed his Chancellor's example. Then Riker. Then each security officer in turn, until Yoda stood at the center of a circle of living beings, all focusing their will on a single purpose: liberation of the 17 trapped consciousnesses. And the Force responded. The luminous energy intensified, became blinding. Data's visual sensors automatically dimmed to prevent overload, and through the brilliance, he watched Yoda's small form transform into something that transcended physical presence. The 900-year-old Jedi Master became a conduit, a living bridge between individual wills and universal energy, channeling the combined determination of the Enterprise crew into precision surgical strikes against the neural bonds holding the 17 victims captive. The dark presence screamed. Actually screamed, a sound that existed only in the mind but felt more real than any physical noise. You cannot win! I have studied the Force for decades. I have mastered techniques your Jedi Council never imagined. I have. Talked too much, you have. Yoda interrupted, and despite the strain evident in his voice, there was grim humor there. The dark side, powerful it is, yes. Seductive. Quick to grant power to those who embrace fear, anger, hate. But sustainable? He opened his eyes, and they blazed with light that made the dark presence recoil. No. The dark side consumes its practitioners. Burns them out. Destroys them from within. But the light side, the living force, infinite it is. Renewable. Fed by life itself, by hope, by compassion, by love. Cannot defeat that, you can. No matter how long studied you have. No matter how clever you think you are. The neural filaments began to smoke and spark. Not from technological failure but from something deeper. The dark energy binding them was being systematically purged, replaced by Yoda's healing light. And as each connection weakened, individual consciousness began to resurface. The 16-year-old girl Yoda had touched first suddenly gasped, her eyes, which had been synchronized with 16 others, moving independently for the first time in months. Where am I? What happened? We were, oh God, we were all together, all crushed together. I couldn't think, couldn't be myself, couldn't. Breathe, Beverly commanded, immediately shifting into physician mode. Just breathe. You're safe now. You're separate. You're you again. One by one, the 17 victims began to separate. Their screams of agony transformed into sobs of relief and confusion. Neural filaments sparked and died as the dark presence's control was systematically severed. And through it all, Yoda stood firm, drawing on the combined will of the Enterprise crew, channeling life energy against death energy, light against darkness, freedom against slavery. But victory came at a cost. The Dark Presence, feeling its experiment failing, made one final desperate gambit. If it couldn't maintain the amalgam, it would destroy the evidence. The neural nexus began to overload, building toward catastrophic explosion that would kill everyone in the chamber, and likely breach the ship's hull. Self-destruct initiated, the cold voice announced with vindictive satisfaction. 30 seconds. You've freed them, Yoda, but you'll all die together. A fitting end for the fallen Jedi. Saving lives but unable to save his own. Data's threat assessment protocols screamed alerts. The Nexus is building toward matter-antimatter detonation. Yield estimated at 0.5 megatons. Lethal radius exceeds this vessel's dimensions. Recommendation: immediate evacuation. No time. Worf countered, checking the transporter enhancers they'd planted. Transport cycle for this many people requires 47 seconds minimum. We can't. Can. Yoda interrupted. His voice had become strained, aged beyond even his 9 centuries. Contain the explosion, I can. 4 seconds. Long enough. But weakened I will be. Vulnerable. The Dark Presence knows this. Counts on this. Still, no choice we have. Riker's command training asserted itself. Everyone on enhancers, now. Medical team, grab as many victims as you can carry. Security, help them. Move. The chamber erupted into controlled chaos. Beverly and her team began disconnecting neurofilaments with desperate speed, trusting Yoda to keep the victims alive through the separation. Security officers lifted weakened bodies. Garan personally carried 2 of the younger victims, his Klingon strength allowing him to bear both their weight easily. 20 seconds. The neural nexus pulsed with building energy, matter and antimatter beginning their lethal dance toward annihilation. 15 seconds. Picard 208 team. The captain's voice crackled through comm edges. We're detecting massive energy buildup. Recommend immediate. Beaming out now! Riker shouted. 17 victims plus away team. Emergency transport, maximum power. 10 seconds. The transporter beam caught them, but not all simultaneously. The enhancers could only handle so many at once. First wave, 6 victims plus medical team. Second wave, 5 victims plus security detail. Third wave, 4 more victims plus Garan and his guards. 5 seconds. Only Riker, Worf, the remaining 2 victims, and Yoda remained. The Nexus was now visibly glowing, reality warping around its impending detonation. Master Yoda, we need to go! Worf grabbed one victim while Riker seized the other. 3 seconds. Transport, Yoda commanded, and his voice carried force compulsion that made the Enterprise's transporter respond with impossible speed. Riker, Worf, and the 2 victims dissolved into energy. 2 seconds. Only Yoda remained, small and alone before the approaching apocalypse. 1 second. On the Enterprise bridge, Picard watched his viewscreen in horror as the amalgam vessel began to glow from within. Transporter room, do we have everyone? Confirm Master Yoda's transport. Negative, Captain, came the transporter chief's frantic reply. He's still aboard. He's doing something. Energy readings are off the scale. 0. The neural nexus detonated. But the explosion, which should have vaporized the amalgam vessel and damaged the Enterprise from radiant heat alone, simply stopped. Contained within a sphere of golden light that wrapped around the detonation like hands cupping a candle flame. Through the viewscreen, through impossible distances, every person on the Enterprise bridge saw Yoda standing at the center of the explosion, arms spread wide, face contorted with effort, holding back annihilation through sheer will and force mastery. Transporter room, get him out of there! Picard shouted. Trying, sir! The energy interference is preventing lock. Data's hands flew across his console with superhuman speed. Rerouting power from secondary systems. Boosting transporter gain by 400%. compensating for quantum interference. Attempting lock, got him! The golden sphere flickered and failed. The explosion resumed its natural expansion, but Yoda was no longer there to be consumed by it. He materialized on the Enterprise's transporter pad in a shower of golden sparks, collapsed forward, and would have struck the deck if Beverly, who had been waiting in the transporter room, hadn't caught him. "Medical emergency!" she shouted, already scanning him. "Multiple systems in shock. Neural activity dangerously low. He's alive but—" her voice caught. "His life signs are failing. Get him to sickbay now!" On the bridge, Picard watched the amalgam vessel vanish in a flash of light as the contained explosion finally consumed it completely. No debris. No survivors. Just empty space where the organic ship had been. And somewhere, across light years of distance, the dark presence that had created the amalgam watched through remote sensors and smiled. The Jedi Master had saved 17 lives, yes. Had demonstrated remarkable power and compassion, certainly. But now he was weakened. Vulnerable. Exactly as planned. The test had provided valuable data. And the next phase could begin. In sickbay, Beverly worked frantically over Yoda's small form while her medical team stabilized the 17 rescued victims. Picard had rushed down from the bridge, and now stood watching helplessly as the doctor fought to save the being who had sacrificed himself for strangers. "His cellular structure is breaking down," Beverly reported, her professional calm barely masking her fear. "Whatever he did, containing that explosion, it burned through his life force. His body's regenerative abilities are depleted. Jean-Luc, I don't know if I can save him. I don't understand his physiology well enough, and he's not responding to standard treatments." Yoda's eyes fluttered open, focusing with difficulty on Picard. "Save them, we did," he whispered. 17 lives. Worth the cost. Always worth the cost. "Don't talk," Picard commanded gently. "Conserve your strength. Dr. Crusher will." Dr. Crusher, skilled she is. But help me, she cannot. The Force, depleted it is. Needs time to restore. Time, and meditation and— he coughed weakly. "Rest. So tired I am. So very tired." "Then rest," Picard said quietly. "Rest, Master Yoda. You've earned it. The children are safe. The colony is safe. You succeeded." Yoda's expression became almost peaceful. "Succeeded, yes. But won? No. The dark presence still out there it is. Watching. Planning. Learning. And stronger next time it will be. Prepared you must be, Captain. Prepared for what comes. For the darkness patient it is. And coming for me, it will be. When weak I am. When vulnerable. When—" his eyes closed. "When least expect it we do." The medical monitors showed Yoda's vital signs stabilizing at dangerously low but sustainable levels. Not death, but something close to it. Hibernation, perhaps. Or healing sleep. Beverly administered what treatments she could and stepped back. "He'll live," she said quietly. "But recovery will take time. Days, at least. Possibly weeks. Whatever he did aboard that vessel, it nearly killed him." Picard placed his hand gently on Yoda's small shoulder. "Then we'll give him that time. And we'll stand guard while he heals. Because you're right, Master Yoda. The darkness is coming. But this time, you won't face it alone." For 6 days, Yoda lay in sickbay's intensive care unit, his small body utterly still, his life signs barely registering on medical displays. Beverly maintained constant vigil, adjusting treatments based on patterns she was learning from his unique physiology, adapting regenerative therapies originally designed for Vulcan neural damage, combining them with cellular reconstruction techniques from Trill medical databases, creating hybrid protocols that shouldn't work but somehow did. The 17 rescued victims, meanwhile, recovered with remarkable speed. Physically, they were healing. Psychologically, the trauma of forced consciousness merging would take years of therapy to process. But they were alive, separate, individual, and grateful beyond words to the small green being who had saved them at such terrible cost. On the seventh day, Yoda's eyes opened. Beverly was there immediately, tricorder in hand, professional relief flooding her features. "Welcome back. How do you feel?" "Like Starship fell on me," Yoda rasped, his voice weaker than Data had ever heard it. "But alive I am. Surprising somewhat. Expected to wake, I did not." "You nearly didn't," Beverly said bluntly. "Your cellular regeneration had dropped to 7% of normal function. Another few hours and the damage would have been irreversible. What you did, containing that explosion, should have killed you instantly. How did you survive?" "The Force," Yoda replied simply. "And stubbornness. Much to do, I still have. Lessons to teach. Darkness to confront. I cannot. Not yet. Not until finished. My purpose is." Picard had been notified the moment Yoda regained consciousness, and now he entered sickbay with Deanna Troi beside him. "Master Yoda, I'm relieved to see you awake. The 17 people you saved have been asking about you daily. They want to thank you personally." "Thank me?" Yoda's ears drooped. "For what? For being reason they were captured? For being bait in traps set for me? No. Thank me, they should not." Deanna moved closer, her empathic senses fully engaged. "Master Yoda, you're experiencing guilt. You blame yourself for their abduction. But you weren't responsible for the Dark Presence's actions. You were the solution, not the cause." "Solution this time," Yoda acknowledged. "But next time? And time after?" "This Dark Presence, obsessed with me, it is. With the Force. With proving itself worthy, or powerful, or—" He trailed off, his ancient eyes distant. "Or perhaps, simply hungry. Consumption, some beings driven by. Acquire they must. Control. Possess. Never satisfied, never complete, always seeking more." His gaze refocused on Picard. "Know this type I do. Fought them before I have. In my galaxy. Here in yours. The dark side many forms takes. But essence, always same is. Emptiness trying to fill itself. Weakness pretending to be strength. Then we need to identify this presence," Picard said. "Locate them before they strike again. Master Yoda, during your confrontation, did you sense anything that might help us determine who or what we're facing? Any detail, no matter how small?" Yoda closed his eyes, reaching into memory and force perception both. "Not Jedi they are. Not Sith either. Wrong, their technique is powerful, yes, but unrefined. Like child, wielding adult's weapon. Dangerous, but clumsy. Studied the Force from distance, they have. Observed, learned, imitated. But understood?" He shook his head. "No. Understanding they lack. And that makes them more dangerous. For what not understand, one cannot respect. What cannot respect, one misuses. What misuses, one destroys, others and self. So we're dealing with someone who learned about the Force secondhand," Deanna summarized. "Possibly through observing your universe from this one. Someone with significant resources, enough to build that amalgam vessel, to abduct 17 people, to project their consciousness across light years. That's not a small operation. And they're patient," Picard added. "They waited until Master Yoda was known to multiple factions, Romulans, Klingon, Q himself. They wanted witnesses to his power. Wanted data about his capabilities. This attack wasn't about killing anyone. It was reconnaissance." "More than reconnaissance," came a new voice from the sickbay entrance. Commander Data entered, carrying a PDD dense with analysis. It was provocation designed to reveal specific information. "Captain, I have completed my analysis of the amalgam vessel's energy signatures recorded during the confrontation. Cross-referencing with Starfleet intelligence databases reveals disturbing correlations. Picard accepted the PADD, scanning data's findings with growing concern. Section 31? The two words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples of shocked silence. Section 31? Beverly repeated, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. The Federation's Black Ops organization that officially doesn't exist? They're behind this? Not conclusively. Data clarified. However, the amalgam vessel's technological components, particularly its biological mechanical integration and neurocontrol systems, bear striking similarity to experimental programs. Section 31 was known to have researched approximately 4.7 years ago. Programs officially terminated after the Dominion War but whose research data was never accounted for. Yoda's eyes had opened fully now, and they held terrible comprehension. Secret organization, operating outside law. Doing what necessary is, regardless of morality. Ends justifying means. This I know. This, in my galaxy, existed also. Intelligence services, believing themselves above rules they enforced on others. His voice carried profound sadness. Section 31? Beverly repeated, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. The Federation's Black Ops organization that officially doesn't exist? They're behind this? Not conclusively. Data clarified. However, the amalgam vessel's technological components, particularly its biological mechanical integration and neurocontrol systems, bear striking similarity to experimental programs. Section 31 was known to have researched approximately 4.7 years ago. Programs officially terminated after the Dominion War but whose research data was never accounted for. Yoda's eyes had opened fully now, and they held terrible comprehension. Secret organization, operating outside law. Doing what necessary is, regardless of morality. Ends justifying means. This I know. This, in my galaxy, existed also. Intelligence services, believing themselves above rules they enforced on others. His voice carried profound sadness. And always such organizations to darkness fall. Always believe themselves serving light, while methods purely dark become. Always justify atrocities in name of security. Section 31 has historically operated with the belief that they protect the Federation from threats it doesn't know exist, Picard said, his voice carrying the weight of personal experience with the organization. They've violated the Prime Directive, conducted illegal experiments, assassinated targets they deemed dangerous. And if they've now become interested in the Force. He looked at Yoda with genuine fear. Master, you represent exactly the kind of unknown variable they'd consider a threat. Power that can't be controlled, can't be regulated, can't be predicted. They wouldn't try to destroy you outright, too valuable as potential asset. But they would study you. Test you. Try to replicate your abilities or find ways to counter them. And if cannot control me, Yoda continued the logic grimly, then neutralize me, they would. Or weaponize me. Or, he paused, understanding dawning. Or create their own Force users. Train operatives. Build secret army of those who can manipulate reality itself. Answerable to no one. Governed by no law. Serving only Section 31's vision of security. The implications created absolute silence in sickbay. An organization that already operated outside Federation oversight, gaining access to abilities that transcended physical law. The potential for abuse was staggering. Deanna voiced what everyone was thinking. If Section 31 succeeds in replicating the Force, there won't be any power in the Federation capable of checking them. They could influence minds, sabotage technology from within, even kill targets without ever being detected. They'd become exactly what they claim to oppose, an authoritarian force imposing their will on everyone else. Then we must prevent this, Picard declared with absolute conviction. Master Yoda came to our universe by accident, but his presence here is now a Federation matter. More than that, it's a moral imperative. We cannot allow the Force to be corrupted, weaponized, turned into a tool of oppression. Yoda struggled to sit up, waving off Beverly's concerned protests. Agree, I do. But how? Section 31, shadows they operate in. Unknown, their bases are. Untraceable, their operatives. How find them, do we? How stop them, before too late it is? They'll come to us, Data said with synthetic certainty. The amalgam experiment demonstrated that Master Yoda can be pushed to expend enormous energy through heroic action. They now possess data about his recovery rates, his vulnerability windows, his willingness to sacrifice himself for others. They will use this information. They'll stage another crisis. Riker realized, entering sickbay with Worf beside him. Both had been listening from the corridor. Something that requires Master Yoda's intervention. Something that forces him to use the Force extensively again, weakening him further. And when he's at his most vulnerable, they'll make their move. Worf finished. Either to capture him, or to eliminate him. It is what I would do, were I conducting operations against a superior opponent. Maneuver them into disadvantageous position. Exploit weakness created by their own actions. Yoda nodded slowly, his expression carrying the weight of centuries spent anticipating exactly these kinds of tactics. Right you are. Both of you. Section 31, predictable in their unpredictability they are. Create crisis. Watch how respond I do. Learn from my response. Adapt their strategy. And strike, when perfect moment arrives. He looked at Picard with eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. Captain, favor I must ask. Dangerous favor. Perhaps foolish favor. Name it, Picard said without hesitation. Use me as bait. Beverly immediately objected. Absolutely not. You're barely recovered. Another expenditure like the amalgam vessel could kill you permanently. I won't allow. Allow? Yoda's voice was gentle but firm. Dr. Crusher, appreciate your concern, I do. Value your medical expertise, I do. But decision mine it is. Not yours. Not the captain's. Mine. He turned back to Picard. Section 31, seeking me they are. Creating situations to test me. Eventually, succeed they will. Better to control circumstances than react to theirs. Better to choose battlefield than fight on terrain they select. Better to spring trap knowingly than fall into one unknowingly. Picard was silent for a long moment, the ethical implications weighing heavily. You're asking me to deliberately put you in danger. To use you as bait to draw out an organization that operates outside Federation law and has demonstrated willingness to sacrifice innocent lives. Master Yoda, even if I agreed, which I'm not certain I do, Starfleet Command would never authorize such an operation. Starfleet Command need not know, Yoda said quietly. Plausible deniability, serve them. Serve you? If plan fails, if captured I am, if killed I am, blame me, they can. Say acted alone. Say Federation not responsible. But if succeed, we do? If expose Section 31's operations, we do? If prevent Force from being weaponized, we do? His ears lifted slightly. Then justified, the risk will be. Then worth the cost, the sacrifice becomes. Data had been processing the strategic implications throughout the conversation. Master Yoda's logic is sound from a tactical perspective. However, there is a significant problem. We do not know where Section 31 operates from, how to contact them, or how to create a situation they would consider worth revealing themselves for. We would be setting a trap without bait they find irresistible. The Force itself is the bait, Biana said suddenly, understanding crystallizing. Section 31 wants to understand it, control it, replicate it. What if Master Yoda offered to teach them? What if he reached out through whatever means the Force allows, and made an offer they couldn't refuse? Knowledge in exchange for face-to-face meeting? Yoda's expression became contemplative. Dangerous, this is. Tempting for them, yes. But also suspicious. Why offer freely what they seek to take by force? Unless... His eyes narrowed with calculation that seemed at odds with his teacher persona. Unless, frame it differently, we do not offer to teach. Instead, challenge. Announce that seeking the Force without understanding, without wisdom, without proper training, this leads only to corruption, to madness, to self-destruction. Challenge them to prove themselves worthy. And when come they do, thinking to demonstrate worthiness. He smiled without humor. Then ready, we will be. Picard recognized that expression. He'd seen it before, in the eyes of tacticians and strategists who had survived impossible situations through cunning rather than force. Yoda wasn't just a teacher or a mystic. He was a general who had commanded armies, fought wars, outlasted empires. And now, that ancient warrior was proposing to go on the offensive. "You're not just offering to be bait," Picard said quietly. "You're planning to hunt them." "Hunt?" Yoda considered the word. "No. Hunting implies seeking to kill. Not my purpose, that is. But confront? Expose? Force into open, where cannot hide. Yes. This, my purpose is. For allow them to continue, I cannot. Allow them to corrupt the Force, I cannot. Allow them to create what Sith once were, dark side users serving only their own vision of order. This, I absolutely cannot permit." Worf growled approval. A warrior's logic. Turn defense into offense. Make the enemy come to you on your terms, not theirs. I understand this strategy. I support it. As do I. Riker added. Though, Captain, we should recognize this is exactly the kind of unauthorized operation that could end all our careers if it goes wrong. Picard smiled grimly. Number 1, my career has survived Borg assimilation, Q's trials, and temporal paradoxes. I think I can risk it one more time for the right cause. And preventing Section 31 from weaponizing the Force? He looked at Yoda. That's worth the risk. But we do this properly. No unnecessary chances. Full planning. Maximum preparation. And the moment I determine the risk outweighs potential benefit, we abort. Agreed? Agreed, Yoda confirmed. But know this, Captain, when face Section 31 we do, when confront the dark presence controlling them, when battle begins. His expression became absolutely serious. Then see, you will, what Jedi Master at full strength can do. Not weakened. Not holding back. Not restraining myself for fear of revealing too much. The time for secrecy, past it has. The time for half measures, ended it has. What comes next? He closed his eyes briefly, as though seeing a future only he could perceive. What comes next will determine whether the Force, in your universe, brings light or darkness. Balance or chaos. Hope. He opened his eyes, and they blazed with determination that belied his small form. Or extinction. The challenge was broadcast on 73 different subspace frequencies simultaneously, encoded in patterns that only the most sophisticated intelligence networks would recognize. Yoda sat in the Enterprise's observation lounge, eyes closed in meditation, while Data monitored the transmission's propagation across Federation space and beyond. The message was simple, delivered in Yoda's distinctive cadence. To those who seek the Force. To those who study from shadows. To those who believe power, without wisdom, sufficient is. Know this, the Force, not a tool to be wielded it is. Not a weapon to be claimed. Living energy it is. Conscious. Choosing. And worthy practitioners it demands. Test yourselves you wish to? Prove your worth you seek to? Then come. Face me. Demonstrate that understanding you possess. That respect for life you maintain. That darkness has not already claimed you. Coordinates follow. 3 days you have. After that, find me, you will not. Choose wisely. Choose carefully. For the Force judges all. And found wanting many are. The coordinates pointed to an uninhabited system on the edge of Federation space, Theta Meloria, a dying red giant surrounded by shattered planetoids and radiation-soaked debris. Strategically, it was perfect. Remote enough that civilian casualties were impossible, sensor-rich enough that cloaked vessels would struggle to hide, and energetic enough that transporters and communications would be unreliable without careful calibration. "The trap is set," Picard said quietly, studying the tactical displays that surrounded them. "Now we wait to see who takes the bait." They didn't have to wait long. 18 hours after the broadcast, the Enterprise's long-range sensors detected a vessel entering the Theta Meloria system. Not cloaked, but running silent, minimal emissions, passive sensors only, moving with the cautious precision of a predator stalking prey. "Configuration unknown," Data reported from his ops station. "Hull composition suggests advanced stealth materials. Energy signature is fragmented, as though the vessel is compartmentalized to prevent detection of its true capabilities. However, I am detecting life signs. Approximately 47 individuals aboard." "Human?" Picard asked. "Predominantly. Also reading 2 Vulcans, 1 Andorian, and 3 biosignatures that do not match any known Federation species." "Captain, this vessel's design incorporates technology from at least 7 different civilizations. It is not a standard Starfleet configuration." Section 31. Worf growled from tactical. "They have arrived." Yoda stood at the viewscreen, hands clasped behind his back, his small form radiating calm that Data's sensors detected as unusual quantum coherence in the space around him. "Come, they have. Confident they are. Prepared they believe themselves to be. But understand they do not. Not truly. Soon learn they shall." "Hailing frequencies," Picard ordered. The viewscreen flickered and resolved into an image that sent cold recognition through everyone present. The woman who appeared wore civilian clothing, nondescript, forgettable, but her eyes held the calculating intensity of someone who had made terrible decisions in service of what she believed was a greater good. Behind her stood a figure that made Yoda's ears rise in surprise. Sub-Commander Garan, the Romulan psychic specialist they had encountered during the first confrontation weeks ago. "Captain Picard?" the woman said, her voice carrying no identification or introduction. "And the infamous Yoda. I appreciate your invitation. It saves us considerable effort in locating you." "You have the advantage," Picard replied coolly. "You know who we are. Might we know whom we're addressing?" The woman smiled without warmth. "Names are irrelevant. I represent an organization dedicated to protecting the Federation from threats both external and internal. Your passenger represents one of the most significant unknown variables we've encountered in decades. His abilities defy scientific analysis. His presence is altering fundamental aspects of our reality. And his potential for causing catastrophic damage, intentionally or otherwise, cannot be overstated." "Potential for damage," Yoda repeated quietly. "Interesting phrase, that is. Judge me, you do, not on actions taken, but on actions might take. Fear this represents. Fear of what cannot control, cannot predict, cannot eliminate. Recognize this, I do. Felt it before, I have. From tyrants. From dictators. From those who mistake control for security, and security for peace. We don't fear you, Master Yoda," the woman replied. "We assess you. And our assessment concludes that allowing you to operate unchecked is an unacceptable risk to Federation security. However," she raised a hand to forestall interruption, "we are not unreasonable. You issued a challenge. Demonstrate that we are worthy of understanding the Force. Very well. We accept. But the test goes both ways. You will also demonstrate that the Force can be controlled, regulated, integrated into Federation society without causing the destabilization our models predict. Fail, and we will be forced to take more, permanent measures. Testing each other then." Yoda acknowledged. "Acceptable, this is. But understand you must, the Force, not mine to give or withhold it is. Not mine to control or regulate. The Force chooses. And worthiness, not I determine. The Force itself judges. Respect this you must. Or learn, through suffering you will. Saren stepped forward, his hybrid Vulcan-Romulan features expressing something between curiosity and trepidation. Master Yoda, I have spent the weeks since our last encounter attempting to understand what you are. My telepathic abilities allow me to sense consciousness across significant distances. Yet you remain opaque. Not absent, but shielded in ways I cannot penetrate. The organization that employs me believes this represents threat. I am not certain they are wrong. Not wrong they are, Yoda said, surprising everyone. Shield myself I do. Automatically. After centuries of defending against dark side users who sought to dominate my mind, to read my thoughts, to break my will. Shields became second nature. Unconscious. Always active. He paused, then made a decision that Picard recognized as tactically significant. But for you, Saren, lower them, I will. Briefly. See into my mind you may. Understand my intentions. Then judge whether threat I am. Or teacher. Before anyone could object or prepare, Yoda closed his eyes and the shields dropped. Saren gasped, staggered, would have fallen if the Section 31 operative hadn't caught him. His face contorted with overwhelming sensation, tears streaming unbidden down his cheeks, his hands trembling as 900 years of accumulated memory, experience, wisdom, pain, failure, and hope flooded into his unprepared consciousness. I see everything, Saren whispered. The Republic falling. The Jedi dying. Younglings slaughtered. Your student, Anakin, becoming Vader. The Clone Wars. The dark side rising. Your failure. Your exile. Your arrival here. Your hope that this universe, this Federation, this time, might be different. Might succeed where you failed. Might learn from your mistakes. Might. He broke off, sobbing openly now. You carry such guilt. Such terrible, crushing guilt. But beneath it still you hope. Still you teach. Still you believe that light can triumph. How? How, after everything you've endured, do you still believe? Yoda's shields raised again, and Saren collapsed to his knees, gasping as though emerging from deep water. Because, Yoda said gently, without hope, what remains? Despair? Darkness? No. Choose hope I do. Not because easy it is. Not because certain I am. But because alternative, unacceptable it is. And because in you, Saren, in Captain Picard, in his crew, in the Federation itself, see potential I do. See the possibility that this time, perhaps, light prevails. The Section 31 operative had regained her composure, though she watched Saren's breakdown with barely concealed concern. Sub-Commander report. Is he a threat? Saren looked up, his face wet with tears but his eyes carrying absolute certainty. No. He is not the threat. We are. He turned to his employer with dawning horror. What we plan to do, studying the Force, weaponizing it, creating operatives who can manipulate reality, it's exactly what destroyed his order. Exactly what he came here to prevent. If we proceed, we become the very darkness he warns against. Emotional compromise, the woman said coldly. Psychic contact has destabilized your judgment. Step back, Sub-Commander. We'll proceed without. No, Saren said firmly. I resign. Effective immediately. I will not participate in recreating the conditions that led to galactic tyranny in another universe. I will not be complicit in the corruption of something sacred. The Section 31 operative's expression hardened. Then you are a security liability. Her hand moved towards something on her belt. A weapon, perhaps, or a communicator to call for restraint. She never completed the gesture. Yoda's hand extended, and across the view-screen transmission, across light minutes of space, through layers of security and shielding, the operative's weapon flew from her belt and clattered across her ship's deck. Every person on her bridge suddenly found themselves unable to move, held in place by invisible force that made Picard's tactical readouts scream impossible quantum effects. "Enough," Yoda said, and his voice carried harmonics that made the Enterprise's hull vibrate in resonance. "Game playing finished it is. Testing concluded it is. Threatened my friend you did. Section 31 operative, who believes yourself above law, above morality, above consequence. Shown you I shall, what happens when force user you threaten. When patience you exhaust. When mercy you reject." The Section 31 vessel's systems began failing. Not catastrophically, Yoda wasn't trying to kill. But comprehensively. Weapons offline. Shields depolarizing. Propulsion systems going into standby. Life support maintained, but everything else systematically disabled by will alone channeled through quantum connections that data sensors could detect but not analyze. "You claim to protect Federation," Yoda continued, his small form somehow seeming to fill the observation lounge despite his diminutive size. "But protect from what? From the unknown? From what cannot control? From possibility that power exists, that you cannot regulate? This, not protection is. This, tyranny is. This, the dark side is." Aboard the Section 31 vessel, the operative found herself able to speak but not move. "You prove our point," she managed. "This power, it's too dangerous. You're too dangerous. Imagine if hostile force possessed these abilities. Imagine if the Dominion, the Borg, the Romulans could do what you're doing now. The Federation would be defenseless." "And so," Picard interjected, finding his voice despite the cosmic forces being casually wielded before him. "Your solution is to ensure that Section 31 possesses such power instead? To create force users answerable to no one, governed by no law, operating in absolute secrecy? Do you truly not see how that makes you the very threat you claim to oppose?" Data had been recording and analyzing every aspect of the confrontation, and now his positronic brain completed calculations that revealed disturbing truth. "Captain, I have detected energy patterns aboard the Section 31 vessel that match signatures from the amalgam ship. They were not just investigating Master Yoda, they created the amalgam. They orchestrated the entire attack on New Rigel Colony." Silence. Then Yoda released his hold on the Section 31 crew, allowing them to move freely again. But his eyes, ancient, tired, infinitely sad, fixed on the operative with absolute comprehension. 17 people," Yoda said quietly. 17 consciousnesses, crushed together. Violated. Tortured. Forced to become weapon against me. This you did. This Section 31 authorized. This, in name of security, you justified. The operative's composure finally cracked. They were volunteers. Criminals facing life sentences who accepted experimental procedures in exchange for clemency. We didn't. Volunteers? Beverly's voice cut across the transmission like a scalpel. I've interviewed those 17 people during their recovery. Not one of them consented to consciousness merging. Not one of them understood what would be done to them. You lied to them. Used them. Destroyed their individuality in service of your experiment. That's not volunteering, that's exploitation. And now, Worf added with Klingon directness, you are caught. Exposed. Your crimes documented and recorded. Section 31's activities can no longer hide in shadows. The Federation will know what you have done. The operative's expression transformed from defensive to calculating in an instant. Then we have nothing left to lose. She reached for her console, fingers flying across controls. If Section 31's exposure is inevitable, we might as well ensure the threat is eliminated. All ships weapons free. Target the Enterprise. Eliminate Yoda and any witnesses too. She stopped. Because Yoda was no longer on the view screen. He had somehow crossed light minutes of space in an instant, and now stood on the Section 31 vessel's bridge, corporeal and present, his small form surrounded by golden light that made every person present shield their eyes. Threaten my friends, you did, Yoda said, and his voice carried the weight of 9 centuries of restrained power finally, fully unleashed. Harm innocents, you did. Corrupt the Force, you attempted. And learn nothing, you do. Nothing. What happened next would be analyzed by Starfleet's Science Division for years, studied by physicists attempting to understand how physical laws had been so comprehensively violated, and ultimately classified at the highest levels because the implications were too disturbing to make public. Yoda raised both hands, and the Section 31 vessel simply stopped. Every system, every process, every quantum function, frozen in stasis field that existed outside normal time, preserving the ship and crew in perfect suspension. Then he transported, without technology, without transporter beams, simply willing himself across space, back to the Enterprise, appearing on the observation lounge exactly where he had been standing, as though he had never left. Contained they are, Yoda said calmly, though his breathing was labored. Alive, but unable to act. Unable to threaten. Unable to harm. Starfleet security can collect them, judge them, prosecute them. But kill them, I did not. Despite crimes. Despite threats. Despite every justification the dark side would offer. Chose restraint, I did. Chose mercy. Chose. He swayed slightly, and Picard caught him before he could fall. Chose light. Always. Always must choose light. Beverly's medical scanner was already out, reading Yoda's vital signs with growing alarm. Jean-Luc, whatever he just did, it's taxed him enormously. Not as badly as the amalgam explosion, but cumulative. Yoda acknowledged. Cost, there always is. Power without price does not exist. Understand this, Section 31 did not. Thought to take force, make it tool, use without consequence. But the Force demands payment. Demands balance. Demands? He looked up at Picard with eyes that had seen too much, endured too much, sacrificed too much. Demands that power, always paired with responsibility. Always tempered with wisdom. Always guided by compassion. Forget this, and darkness comes. Inevitable. Unavoidable. Absolute. Riker was monitoring communications with the Section 31 vessel, now a perfect sphere of temporal stasis hanging motionless in space. Captain, we're receiving automated distress signals from other Section 31 assets. They know something happened. We may have company soon. Then we leave, Picard decided. We've accomplished what we came to do, exposed Section 31's crimes, protected Master Yoda, and demonstrated that the Force cannot be claimed through force. Helm, set course for Starbase 157. Maximum warp. Mr. Data, transmit all our sensor logs and recordings to Starfleet Command, Admiral Nechayev specifically. Let her deal with Section 31's fallout. As the Enterprise went to warp, leaving the frozen Section 31 vessel for Starfleet recovery teams, Picard helped Yoda to a chair. The Jedi Master looked impossibly old, impossibly tired, but also, somehow, at peace. The dark presence identified it is, Yoda said quietly. Section 31, believing themselves above consequence, attempting to weaponize what should never be weapon. Stop them, we did. But, he paused, and his expression grew troubled. But not finished, this is. Section 31, many branches has. Many operatives. Many who now know what I can do. Fear me they will. Or desire me. Or seek to replicate me. The problem, solved it is not. Only delayed. Only pushed to later day. And that day, when comes, he closed his eyes. Ready we must be. For the true test yet comes. The true choice yet awaits. And then, discover we shall, whether the Force, blessing or curse, to your universe will be. Deanna placed her hand gently on Yoda's shoulder, her empathic senses detecting layers of meaning beneath his words. You sense something specific, don't you? Something coming that we can't yet see. Yoda nodded slowly. Always in motion, the future is. Clear, it never is. But patterns I sense. Echoes. The force, spreading through your galaxy, it continues. More beings sensitive becoming. More power, manifesting. And with power comes temptation. With temptation comes fall. And with fall. He opened his eyes, and they held knowledge he did not speak aloud. Comes what I fled from, in my galaxy. Comes what destroyed my order. Comes darkness, seeking new home. New victims. New empire to corrupt. Then we'll face it, Picard said with absolute conviction. Together. Not as Federation and refugee, not as captain and guest, but as allies. As friends. As people who understand that some things are worth fighting for. Worth sacrificing for. Worth risking everything to protect. Yoda's expression softened into something approaching a smile. Good you are, Captain Picard. Strong your crew is. Wise your Federation aspires to be. Hope you give me. After so long, after so much loss, hope you restore. For this, grateful I am. Forever grateful. The gratitude is mutual, Master Yoda, Picard replied. You've taught us more than you know. About power and restraint. About wisdom and action. About the cost of doing what's right, even when it hurts. Even when it's hard. Even when the easier path calls to us. He stood, looking out at the stars racing past as the Enterprise traveled at warp 9 toward uncertain future. Whatever comes next, whatever darkness waits, we'll face it as you taught us. With compassion. With courage. With the understanding that the greatest strength lies not in domination, but in the choice to show mercy. Remember this, Yoda said quietly. When tested you are. When tempted. When the dark side offers easy answers to hard questions. Remember that chose light we did. Here. Now. Together. And possible, all things become, when choose light we do. All things. The Federation would never be the same after Yoda's arrival. Within months, 17 individuals across Federation space spontaneously manifested force sensitivity. The ability to sense emotions across distances, to move objects with thought, to perceive futures that had not yet crystallized. Starfleet established the Department of Consciousness Studies to research the phenomenon, with strict ethical guidelines preventing weaponization or exploitation. Section 31's exposure led to the most comprehensive intelligence reform in Federation history. Admiral Nechayev, armed with irrefutable evidence of their crimes, dismantled 70% of their operational capacity. The organization didn't die. Entities like Section 31 never truly die, but they retreated into deeper shadows, wary of the small green being who had exposed them so thoroughly. Yoda remained aboard the Enterprise as visiting teacher and advisor, though his influence spread far beyond one ship. Vulcan philosophers began re-examining Klingon in light of his teachings about emotional balance rather than suppression. Klingon warriors studied his philosophy that true strength included knowing when not to fight. Even the Romulans, through careful diplomatic channels, requested texts on force philosophy, though whether for wisdom or tactical advantage remained unclear. The dark presence that had controlled the amalgam was never found. But Yoda knew it was out there, waiting, learning, preparing for the day when it would emerge from hiding with greater understanding and deadlier purpose. The Force had taken root in a new universe, and like all living things, it would grow. Whether toward light or darkness remained to be determined, not by destiny, but by the choices of those who would wield it. For 900 years, Yoda had taught, fought, failed, and endured. Now, in a galaxy far different from his own, he would teach again. And perhaps, this time, his students would succeed where the Jedi Order had not. Perhaps, this time, balance would be achieved. Perhaps, this time, the Force would bring not the fall of civilization but its elevation. If those who learned it remembered that power without wisdom was tyranny, that strength without compassion was cruelty, and that the greatest victory was not in defeating your enemies but in turning them into friends. The Enterprise sailed on through the final frontier, carrying a master who had crossed universes to find redemption, a crew who had learned that some lessons were worth any price, and the hope that even in the darkest times, light could be chosen. Always. Live long and prosper. Hit the subscribe button for more interesting stories. Thank you for watching.